Chapter 480. After all, Feng Xiao was still unconscious, so she was the only one left. Of course, if she did not sit there, perhaps someone from the Feng family's branch family would be pushed to the throne. Thinking about it, everyone felt that it was not too likely. None of the Feng family's branch family members had the ability to sit in the throne. Even if the Feng family was supporting her from behind, if she did not have the ability to handle matters, how could the throne be so easy to sit in? However, it was at this time that a large dark cloud suddenly appeared in the night sky, covering the Feng manor. There was a faint flash of lightning, and a rumbling sound came from the cloud, shocking everyone below into suddenly raising their heads. What is going on? Is it going to snow or thunder? Some people spoke with strange expressions, while others stared at the cloud that covered the Feng manor. Their eyes were filled with shock. Ha 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 ha. Feng Qing Gu. Your Feng manor is bullying the master. Even the heavens can't bear to see it. Ha 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 ha. Strike. Strike them to death. Strike them to death. Murongbo wildly laughed, but his voice was too old and powerless. It sounded very ear-piercing. After hearing Murongbo's words, some of the people who already had strange expressions turned their gazes to the clouds above the Feng manor, thinking to themselves, this shouldn't really be as Murongbo said. The Feng manor shouldn't have done something that would incur the wrath of the heavens and cause lightning to strike, right? Just as they were thinking, a bolt of lightning flashed across the night sky, and a bolt of heavenly lightning struck the Feng manor. The sound was so loud that even the ground began to shake. At this time, even the Feng guards raised their heads in shock. They were a little confused. Why did this bolt of lightning strike their Feng manor? Only Fengzhou's eyes lit up when she saw the bolt of lightning. A look of joy quickly appeared on her face. She looked at the second bolt of heavenly lightning that struck a certain part of the manor with a loud boom. The smile on her lips gradually deepened. When the 4 golden core cultivators saw the surging aura in the sky and the heavenly lightning striking the mansion, their eyes flashed with surprise. Then, they only smiled. It came faster than they expected, and from the looks of it, it should be a large success. Unlike cultivators, Xian martial artists could only attract heavenly lightning when they advanced from martial great master to martial emperor. After enduring 3 bolts of heavenly lightning, a martial great master would successfully advance to martial emperor. Currently, the only person in the Feng manor who was advancing was the head of the family, Feng Xiao. Boom! When the 3rd bolt of lightning struck, the dark clouds in the sky suddenly scattered and a ray of light appeared in the night sky. This ray of light formed 7 colors that gradually spread out and almost covered the entire Yunhua city. The originally dark sky was as bright as day in this 7-colored light. The 7 colors complemented each other and shrouded the entire Yunhua city. As the light fell from the sky like rain, everyone in the city was shocked and ran out to see. Feng manor. Heavens! I can actually see this kind of scene. Good fortune descending from the heavens. That must be someone with a high position and the heavens' favor. Only someone with good fortune can receive such good fortune from the heavens. Too unbelievable. This is the first time this old man has seen good fortune descend from the heavens. Chapter 481. Even Murongbo, whose life force had almost dried up, recovered some of his vitality under this multicolored light. He stared blankly at the starry night sky and muttered, "How is this possible? How can this be? Who is it? Who else in the Feng manor is advancing? To be able to benefit all of Cloud Moon City's citizens." The citizens of the city all rushed towards the Feng manor because they had all seen that the place with the most multicolored light was where the Feng manor was located. Especially when they ran over and saw the soldiers kneeling on the ground, as well as the multicolored light in the sky above the Feng manor's head, each and every one of them began to jump in joy. It's the Feng manor. It's the light from the Feng manor. The surrounding families and factions were all shocked. They all stared blankly at the sky above the Feng manor. Their hearts were filled with shock. Even the heavens were helping the Feng manor. After tonight, even if the Feng family's eldest young miss wanted to become the ruler of the glorious Sun country, probably no one would oppose it. However, at this moment, an angry roar came from the Feng manor. That voice carried a thunderous anger. It was clearly heard by everyone outside. What a good Murongbo! You really think my Feng family has no one? Hiss! Hiss! It's Feng Xiao. It's Feng Zhao's voice. Hiss. How is this possible? Wasn't he unconscious? Heavens! Could it be that the person advancing is Feng Xiao? Cries of shock came from the mouths of the family heads and the surrounding cultivators. All of them stared with wide eyes in disbelief at the Feng manor. When they saw a figure holding a spear rushing out of the manor, they all froze. Murongbo! You treacherous person! My Feng family has retreated time and time again. We didn't even bother about you trying to kill me. Now you dare to bully my Feng family. Bully my daughter. You really deserve to die. A deafening voice that contained the powerful pressure of a martial emperor came out of Feng Zhao's mouth. Every word in that voice carried a fierce aura, sonorous, powerful, and piercingly cold. It was the iron-blooded aura that belonged to him, the fierce and unyielding martial spirit that belonged to him as a martial general. His voice was oppressive, and each word was like a blade, like numerous sharp blades that pierced towards Murongbo's heart. Murongbo, who had recovered a trace of vitality due to the multicolored light and stood up, was so shocked that his eyes widened when he heard Feng Zhao's furious voice. Now that he saw Feng Xiao holding a long spear and rushing over, he waved the long spear in his hand and heavily slammed it on the ground. He angrily pointed at Murongbo, causing the blood in his chest to churn and a mouthful of his heart's blood to suddenly spurt out. Pooh! His body and mind suffered a blow, and his mind suffered a heavy blow. He only felt his vision darken. He could not believe it, nor did he want to believe it, that Feng Xiao, who he thought was seriously injured and unconscious, was actually standing in front of him with a majestic aura. Furthermore, he, who was originally in the early stages of martial great master, had now broken through to become a martial king. How was this possible? How was this possible? Feng Xiao. This time, he did not fall to the ground because he tightly held onto the imperial carriage and supported his body. His shocked gaze was filled with disbelief and hatred as he stared at the majestic figure standing in front of the Feng Manor's gates. Chapter 482. It's really Feng Xiao. He's fine. He even became a martial emperor. How did he become a martial emperor at such a young age? Other than shock, the crowd also felt an indescribable shock. Some people had cultivated for their entire lives and still could not break through to martial arts grandmaster. Even Yunhua City's old master Gung and Feng Manor's old master Feng were only at the peak of martial arts grandmaster after cultivating for their entire lives. However, Feng Xiao was originally only a beginner martial arts grandmaster. Even if he cultivated for another 50 years, it would be very difficult for him to reach martial emperor. But now, he did it. Not only did he not fall into a coma, but he also became the first martial emperor of the country of Glorious Sun. A martial emperor less than 100 years old. This was simply unbelievable. Die. Feng Xiao snorted heavily. The long spear in his hand shook again. Die so that you can destroy my Feng family. Die so that you can bully my daughter. My Feng family has protected the country of Glorious Sun for generations and is loyal to your Murong family. But in the end, you actually tried to kill me. What evil thing did I, Feng Xiao, do that you have to kill me? He questioned in a loud voice. Every sentence was harsh. He glared at Feng Xiao fiercely. I didn't come out of the hidden residence and handed over the imperial power. I didn't want to fuss over the fact that you tried to kill me. But what about you? You, Murongbo, actually want my daughter to be someone else's concubine. You want to take over my Feng family's power. You want to recruit my Feng family's Feng guards. You want to destroy the century-old Feng family. Now, if I don't stand up, how can I face my Feng family's ancestors? Murongbo. You've lost your power and your destiny is over. Killing you will dirty the long spear in my hand. Kill yourself. Other than you, I, Feng Shao, will say that as long as they abide by the rules and don't go against my Feng family, I won't hurt them at all. Hearing these words, everyone sighed in their hearts. This Feng Shao still had benevolence and righteousness in his heart. If it was someone else today, they would definitely kill the Murongbo and then kill his descendants to prevent them from taking revenge in the future. However, Feng Shao might have let them go because of their friendship with the previous generation of the Murong family. Doing this was already extremely benevolent. Perhaps it was because he had truly realized that he had lost his momentum, but at this moment, Murongbo's eyes were lifeless. He stared blankly at all of the soldiers kneeling on the ground and not getting up. Facing the Feng manor, he looked at all of the family factions standing nearby and watching. He looked at all of the citizens pointing at him and discussing him. It was as if he was the only one left in this world. He was so lonely, and so sorrowful. Who could be blamed for the fact that he was deserted by his friends and family? The entire Murong dynasty was buried. Who was to blame? Ha, 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 ha. I, Murongbo, made a mistake, and then I made a mistake. Ha, 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 ha. That the sorrowful laughter seemed to have used up the last bit of his heart's blood. He raised his head and beat his chest as he laughed. Blood came out of his mouth and he staggered back 2 steps. His entire body collapsed on the imperial carriage. His eyes stared at the sky and he took his last breath. The ruler of a dynasty tragically fell in this situation where he was deserted by his friends and family. The surroundings suddenly quieted down. Everyone watched as Murongbo took his last breath, but he was unable to close his eyes that stared at the sky. At this moment, everyone's hearts were indescribably complicated and they were all silent. Chapter 483. Fengjiu walked forward slowly and came to her father's side. Her clear voice was filled with mystic energy. From now on, my father, Feng Shao, the head of the Feng family, will take over everything in the glorious Sun Nation and become the new king of the glorious Sun Nation. The glorious Sun Nation will be changed to the Phoenix dynasty. 3 days later, you will enter the East Palace. Her voice echoed clearly in the night, clearly entering everyone's ears. At the same time, everyone's hearts trembled, and the soldiers and commoners all excitedly knelt down to pay their respects. Greetings to the king. Long live the king. Greetings to the princess. Long live the princess. The Phoenix dynasty will shine with the sun and the moon for thousands of generations. The deafening cheers echoed in the sky above Yunhua City for a long time. The people from the families and forces all looked on in shock, their hearts filled with emotions. The Feng family was the home of the people. No one dared to say anything about it. From tonight onwards, the glorious Sun Nation had ended, and a brand new Phoenix dynasty had appeared. Looking at the scene in front of him, Feng Shao was confused. He looked at his daughter in shock. How did he become the king after coming out? Also, the glorious Sun Nation had changed to the Phoenix dynasty. Seeing her father's confused and shocked gaze, Fengjiu smiled and said, "Father, don't you think that it's best for you to be the king of the Phoenix dynasty? A family can't be without a king, and a country can't be without a king. Although this is a small 9th-tier country, once the news of what happened in Yunhua City spreads, it will definitely attract the attention of other countries. Only when you become the king of this country can you continue to protect the citizens and the country." But he didn't want to be the king. There are no buts. I know that father will definitely be a good ruler, and I also know that father has the ability to control and protect our country. Speaking to this point, she smiled, and her eyes overflowed with dazzling light and spirit. Father is now a martial emperor expert. As far as I know, none of the rulers of the surrounding small ninth-grade countries have Father's cultivation. I think that once the news spreads and they know that Father has become the ruler, they will only send gifts to congratulate him. They will definitely not dare to invade our Phoenix dynasty's territory. After you take over for a while, you can participate in the country evaluation. I believe that the Phoenix dynasty's rank will rise even further. Her voice paused, and her eyes sparkled. Father, the Phoenix dynasty belongs to our family. Let's protect it together. Let's strengthen it. Perhaps he was influenced by her words, or perhaps he was attracted by the future she had envisioned, but Feng Zhao's sharp eyes, and he said in a deep voice. Let's protect it together. This will always be our home. Luo Yu and the others were sent to the palace to deal with the aftermath, while Feng Zhao stayed behind to reorganize the troops. Just as he had said earlier, once Murongbo died, he would not pursue the matter of the other members of the Murong family. However, he would chase them out of Yunhua City and let them settle down in other cities and towns. Fengjiu didn't take over the matters outside anymore. After handing the matters over to them, she went back to her residence first. Tonight's matter was much smoother than she had expected. It was easily resolved without using a single soldier. Chapter 484. You handled the matter very beautifully. The Yama lord poured a cup of wine and looked at her as he spoke. Fengjiu walked in and sat down at the table. It's already quite late. Are you not going back to rest? Didn't this lord say it already? I'll wait for you to come back and drink. He raised the wine cup in his hand, and a playful smile appeared on his lips. Wine, this monarch has enough. Hearing this, the corners of her mouth twitched and she smiled. No need. I've recently stopped drinking. What a joke. What would happen if she did it again? Especially if she drank with this man. It was too dangerous. Scared? He raised an eyebrow and was a bit surprised. Hey, Yama Lord, I'm tired enough tonight. How about this? Let's talk another day. Look, my father has just taken over this country. There are many things he needs to take care of. Recently, I need to help him take care of some things. I will definitely be very busy, so you see. The Yama Lord glanced at her and said in a low and magnetic voice, since the Feng Manor's crisis has passed, shouldn't you take care of the matter between the two of us? Ah. What matter between the two of us? She feigned ignorance and asked. Your father is very satisfied with this lord in all aspects. Speaking of this, he was quite proud because he had easily taken care of his future father-in-law. Now, as long as she nodded, this matter would be settled. However, getting this woman to nod was not easy. Is that so? If he's satisfied, then that's good. You are our Feng family's benefactor. If he's not satisfied with you, could it be that he doesn't like you? She smiled awkwardly and did not want to continue chatting. Thus, she stood up. I'm a bit tired tonight. That's all for now. I'm going to sleep first. I still need to get up early tomorrow. That's all. She waved her hand. She had only taken 2 steps when she heard the low and magnetic voice come from behind her. Hearing his shameless words, she tripped and almost fell. Do you need this lord to warm your bed? This lord is very good at this. He was in a good mood as he watched her run for her life into the room without even looking back. She closed the door with a bang. Seeing this, his lips curled into a smile. Although there was still some distance between the two of them, the wonderful feeling produced by this distance made him feel happy at all times. Recalling what Hui Lang had said about a good woman being afraid of a pestering man, it seemed that pestering her was useful. However, it seemed that pestering her was not enough to deal with her. Should he think about using his manly charm to seduce her? Thinking of this, his deep black eyes leaped with eagerness. He suddenly felt that his idea was very good. In the room, Fengjiu poured himself a glass of water and drank it. His eyes darted around and his brows furrowed. He felt that this could not go on. This Yama lord, she had to think of a way to get rid of him, but what could she do to get rid of him? After drinking a glass of water, she didn't go to bed. Instead, she flashed into the space. Chapter 485. The monarchs of various small countries all sent people to find out the truth of the news. When they found out that it wasn't a rumor, and that Feng Xiao would ascend the throne 3 days later, they all ordered people to prepare generous gifts and send them to the Phoenix dynasty. Due to the distance and the lack of a spaceship, it was impossible to deliver the congratulatory gifts within 3 days. The reason they sent someone to deliver the gifts was just to express their attitude. As for the visit and congratulation, they naturally had to choose another day to do so. 3 days later, Feng Xiao ascended the throne as monarch. Almost the entire country was celebrating, and all the citizens were celebrating. Because Feng Xiao was originally a loyal and righteous person, and had also protected this country for many years, now that he ascended the throne, the citizens naturally cheered endlessly. And in a city, Murong Yixian, who was wearing a crescent moon robe, looked at the yellow notice posted on the notice board, and couldn't help but be slightly startled. He left and didn't care about their matters, and didn't want to find out what happened to his father in the end. However, on the road these few days, no matter where he was, under the notice board, the news spread extremely quickly. Even if he didn't deliberately ask around, he would still know what happened that night. He couldn't find fault with the Feng family's actions. After all, his father wasn't killed by them. Moreover, he died, but the other members of the Murong family weren't affected. This kind of result was already better than what he expected. He naturally wouldn't resent the Feng family for taking away their Murong family's kingdom and forcing his father to death. If it wasn't for his father's actions that day, how would the Murong family end up like this? If it was anyone else, they would definitely eliminate the weeds and leave no survivors for the Murong family. However, the Feng family didn't, and for this, he was very grateful. The Phoenix dynasty, this was a country that belonged to the Feng family. Actually, this should have been their family's. If it wasn't for the Feng family protecting it for generations, this land would have already been swallowed by other small countries. The Feng family had sacrificed so much, and they deserved everything they had now. After becoming the princess of the Phoenix dynasty, I wonder what plans she has in the future. He softly muttered, still worried about her. Perhaps it was only because he couldn't get it that he kept thinking about it. At the same time, in Yunhua City, Feng Xiao moved into the imperial palace. The original Feng manor was left to Fengjiu and became her private residence. In the imperial palace, there was naturally a palace left for her. However, compared to the imperial palace, she seemed to prefer living in the Feng manor. It was also because of this that it was difficult for Feng Xiao to see her. After all, when he wanted to see his daughter after dealing with state affairs, he was told that his daughter was not in the palace. Thinking about it made him depressed. Unlike the other rulers, even if Feng Xiao became the ruler of the Phoenix dynasty, his harem was still empty. Think about it, he had never taken in a single woman in the Feng manor before. Naturally, it was impossible for him to take in a bunch of women in the harem after becoming the ruler. Moreover, in his heart, there had always been only his daughter's mother, similar to Feng Xiao was the Yama lord. After Feng Xiao became the ruler of the Eastern Palace, the Yama lord could not find Fengjiu's figure. Every time he went to the Feng manor to find her, the people in the manor would say that their master had gone to the palace. When he went to the palace, Feng Xiao would say that his daughter was in the Feng manor. This caused him to not be able to find her after running around twice. He didn't even see Fengjiu appear. If he didn't know that it was impossible for her to leave before Feng Xiao stabilized the Phoenix dynasty, he would really suspect that she had sneaked away again. Chapter 486. Recently, she had been cultivating and realized that she was unable to break through after reaching the peak of the martial grandmaster realm. She wanted to enter the martial ancestor realm, but she felt as if she was missing something. She didn't use any pills on herself. Instead, she started to discuss with Huafeng when she couldn't break through. I feel that I'm missing an opportunity. Do you think we should find some time to go out for a walk? Her eyes turned and her expression brightened. It seemed that she had been thinking about this for a long time. Yes, she couldn't get rid of the Yama Lord, but she could at least get rid of herself, right? Moreover, her father's matters were more or less settled. As long as there were no other countries to invade and the Phoenix Guards were protecting him, his position as the ruler of the country could not be more stable. That man is not an ordinary man. Do you think you can escape from him? The white and chubby fire phoenix, who was only wearing a dudu, glanced at her with disdain. It was chewing on the ginseng that Fengjiu had gathered for it. Of course, it was not as old as the 1,000-year-old ginseng. It liked to eat ginseng, as well as some fire-attribute spirit herbs and spirit fruits. However, those things were too rare in this place. Only a few hundred-year-old ginseng could satisfy its cravings. Even so, it had become white and chubby recently. Its exposed limbs were as white as lotus roots, tempting people to take a bite out of them. Being looked down upon by the little guy, Fengjiu smiled embarrassedly. Then, it raised its chin and said proudly, "Who told me to be so charming that even the Yama Lord couldn't resist it? Actually I didn't want to either." Seeing her act, the little fire phoenix rolled its eyes. It hugged the half-eaten ginseng and turned around, leaving her with its fleshy back and its chubby little butt. Seeing this, Fengjiu happily reached out and poked its little butt. She asked with a smile, "Why do you like to wear a bellyband recently? Look, your little butt is showing." "Humph. It's good that my little bird is not showing," it said without turning its head and waved at her in disdain. "Don't stay here all day and annoy me like a coward. Hurry up and get out. It's going to turn the sky upside down if I can't find you." Sigh. "If I can't hide, then I'll just go out." She sighed softly. Then, she stood up and dusted off her clothes before flashing out of the space. "Coward." Little Fire Phoenix muttered and finished eating the ginseng. Then, it went to the place where the elixirs were placed. Outside, in the courtyard, Yen Zhu, who couldn't find her, had been waiting for her in the courtyard. When Fengjiu came out of the space, he, who was drinking tea in the courtyard, paused for a moment. His deep black eyes flashed with a dim light as he looked towards the room. Her aura had not been there before, but now, it had suddenly appeared out of thin air. He was still wondering why he couldn't find her, but it turned out that she had a spatial treasure with her. No wonder. The door creaked open, and the figure appeared at the door. He looked at him and revealed a flattering smile. "Hee, Yama Lord, why are you drinking tea in this courtyard? Do you need me to accompany you? Not hiding anymore?" He raised an eyebrow and his deep black eyes fell on her body, making her scalp tingle. Chapter 487. With just a glance, he could tell that there was a problem with her cultivation. He did not continue to harp on the previous topic and instead asked, "Have you reached a bottleneck in your cultivation?" Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes lit up and she quickly sat down opposite him. "Yes, my cultivation is at the peak of the martial grandmaster level, but I haven't been able to break through recently. I think I'm missing an opportunity, so I was wondering if I should go out for a walk." Hearing this, the Yama Lord glanced at her indifferently. "Are you trying to leave me behind to lie low for a while?" Of course not. I was just about to ask you, do you want to come along?" Her thoughts were exposed, so she smiled embarrassedly and quickly tried to salvage the situation. "Humph. If you want to invite me along, you have to see if I'm in the mood." The Yama Lord snorted coldly. He was obviously happy, but he still put on airs arrogantly. "I see. It's okay, I can do it myself. Her eyes were full of smiles as she looked at him with a cheerful expression. Hearing this and seeing her cheerful expression, the Yama Lord glared at her, who said, I'm not going. Don't even think about leaving me behind. The corner of her mouth twitched. This arrogant and unreserved man. Why can't he be more reserved? Cough. The Yama Lord put a fist to his lips and coughed lightly. He looked at her and continued, you can't reach the heavens in a single step in cultivation. In the past few months, your cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds. Many people can't keep up with your cultivation speed. However, this kind of cultivation is not good. You have to build a solid foundation for every rank. Otherwise, the higher your cultivation, the easier it is for you to collapse. Since you've already reached a bottleneck, take this opportunity to go out with me and train. Don't try to break through for the time being, otherwise it won't be of any help to your future cultivation. Don't take those advancement pills either. Piling up pills won't work either. Taking pills too often will make it easier for your cultivation to advance as you go further. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded seriously, which was rare for her. Yes, I understand. Then, she looked at him strangely and asked, Yama Lord, are you really that free? You really don't need to go back to your house. The Yama Lord's lips curled into an imperceptible smile. He glanced at her and asked, what's wrong? Are you trying to inquire about my family background? If you want to ask, just ask. Why do you have to beat around the bush? If you ask, I will definitely tell you. There's no need. I'm just saying, just saying. She immediately retreated. She didn't want to know his background and family background. Knowing too much wouldn't do her any good. Seeing that she had instantly shrunk back like a tortoise, Lord Yama glared at her in exasperation. This cowardly woman. He had already made it so clear, yet she was still playing dumb. However, it didn't matter. He had plenty of time to waste with her. In the end, she would only be his woman. Thinking of this, his mood suddenly became better and the corner of his lips curled up. His handsome and resolute face was usually cold and tense, but now, because of this smile, the coldness on his face was softened. Fengjiu couldn't help but stare in a daze at this gentle expression. Chapter 488. What? Do you think this lord is a feast for your eyes again? He glanced at her and said coldly, this lord's tofu isn't delicious. If you don't admit it after eating it, how would I dare? She laughed and immediately put away her drooling expression and put on a serious face, Yama Lord, then when do you think we should leave? Seeing her putting on a serious face, he snorted, you can let go of your father's place. As long as you can, this lord can leave with you at any time. Hearing this, she secretly rolled her eyes. What do you mean he can leave with me at any time? He said it as if it was something. However, she still had a fawning smile on her face, and said, I can let go. I've left 4 golden core cultivators here for my father, and with the Phoenix guards guarding, the other small countries won't dare to invade. If the other small countries don't dare to invade, the people from the various forces in the Phoenix dynasty won't dare and have no reason to do so. Besides, I know my father's abilities and methods. With his power and handling ability, he can naturally control the Phoenix dynasty. Especially since we were born and raised in this place, we can't be more familiar with it. There's nothing to worry about. This was also what she thought after thinking about it. Her father was very safe here, and he could make full use of his abilities. Even if she left for a year or so, she would be at ease. Seeing this, the Yama Lord looked at her, if that's the case, then let's leave now. There's no need to be in such a hurry. I have to make some arrangements. She thought for a moment, and said, 3 days. We'll leave in 3 days. I still have to enter the palace to tell my father about this. Enter the palace? This lord will accompany you. As he said this, he stood up. Hearing this, she glanced at him, and asked, "I'm going to the palace to say goodbye to my father. Why are you following me? Are you afraid that I'll sneak away again?" Cough. The Yama Lord coughed, feeling a bit awkward, but he didn't show it on his face. His deep gaze moved from her face to the other side, and said lightly, "This lord also has to say goodbye. After all, he's an elder." "All right. Let's go together then." Her voice paused, and she hesitated for a moment. She looked at him and said, "But when we go to my father's place, don't talk nonsense." "What nonsense are you spouting?" He was confused for a moment and glanced at her, but when he saw her winking at him, he instantly understood. The corner of his mouth twitched and he looked up at the sky speechlessly. Was this woman afraid that he would tell her about that night when she was drunk? You've reminded me. If your father knew that the two of us had already reached that level, he would definitely be more at ease with you by my side," he said seriously, but a smile flashed through his deep black eyes, and the corners of his lips curled up in an imperceptible arc. Fengjiu was stunned when he saw him walk out with his hands behind his back. He quickly ran to catch up with him. "Yama Lord, I realize that you've become even more handsome recently. Your manly charm is off the charts." "Old people again." Hee, I'm wrong. You can't be considered an old man. At most, you're a charming uncle." "Uncle?" The Yama Lord snorted, "This lord is only 25 years old this year. I'm only 9 years older than you." Then should I call you big brother?" she asked carefully. Chapter 489. Fengjiu felt embarrassed. Did this person like to harp on this matter? Although she had taken advantage of him quite a bit that night, she did not actually pounce on him, did she? Also, who was the one that said that the alcohol was strong, then added that there was enough alcohol after hearing her say that she wouldn't cause trouble after drinking? It was clear that he was the one with bad intentions, and she had taken advantage of him. In truth, she felt that if she had not vomited all over him that night, the one that had been taken advantage of would have been her. That was why when she thought about it, she felt at ease. Who told him to have bad intentions in the first place? Leaving the courtyard, Hui Lang's shadow followed behind the two. Leng Xuan, who knew that Fengjiu was going to the palace, went to arrange for a carriage. After all, there was still some distance between here and the palace. Naturally, they could not walk. However, just as they left the Feng Manor's gates, they saw Guan Shilin walking towards them. "Xiao Jiu. I was just about to look for you." Seeing her, Guan Shilin broke into a smile. Seeing the Yama Lord to the side, he cupped his hands and greeted him. "Brother, shouldn't you be at the black market right now? Why are you here?" She walked towards him and asked. I have something to tell you. Do you have time right now?" His gaze moved between Fengjiu and the Yama Lord. "These two shouldn't be going out for a stroll, right? I was just about to go to the palace. I have something to tell father. Do you want to come? We can talk on the way." She gestured to the carriage to the side. Guan Shilin, who was about to nod, saw the Yama Lord glance at him from the corner of his eye. He then looked at the carriage and could not help but smile, "So it's like that. Then I'll also go with you." I'll just ride a horse. You two can sit in the carriage. This carriage is very wide. The three of us won't be able to." As he spoke, he was interrupted. "It's getting late. Let's talk on the way." As he spoke, the Yama Lord had already stepped into the carriage and entered. Seeing this, Guan Shilin quickly said, "Xiao Jiu, get in the carriage. It's the same if we talk in the palace." The Yama Lord's aura was not something a normal person could endure. If he dared to sit in the same carriage as them, he would probably be frozen to death by the Yama Lord's aura. "All right. Then we'll talk about it in the palace." She smiled and didn't force him. Only then did she get into the carriage. At this time, in the palace, Feng Xiao was sitting in front of a desk after finishing his work. At this moment, he did not have his usual majesty. In his hand, he held an amethyst white jade hairpin. He stroked the hairpin over and over again as if he was caressing the person he loved. At this moment, his eyes were filled with longing, tenderness, and pain that had never appeared before. Wanrong, our daughter has grown up. Do you know? She's really outstanding. If you could be by our side, how good would that be? He murmured in a low voice with a hint of sobbing. Men don't cry easily, but at this moment, tears welled up in his eyes. After so many years, the memories that should not have been forgotten were sealed away. The person in his heart that should not have been forgotten was not remembered. He felt guilty, his heart ached, and his heart was filled with longing. Chapter 490. Father, I'm here. Feng Jiu's voice came from outside. When Feng Xiao, who was sitting in front of the desk, heard this, he quickly raised his sleeve to wipe the corners of his eyes. After adjusting his state of mind, he raised his head and saw that his daughter had already come in. Father? What's wrong? When Feng Jiu arrived in front of him and saw that his eyes were slightly red, he couldn't help but be a bit startled. When he saw the amethyst white jade hairpin in his hand, his eyes couldn't help but slightly move. It's nothing. He shook his head, not wanting to say more. It's nothing. Then what is this? She reached out and took the amethyst white jade hairpin from his hand, smiling as she looked at her nervous father. Xiao Jiu, be careful, don't break it. He quickly stood up, afraid that she would accidentally break the amethyst white jade hairpin. Feng Jiu saw his nervous expression and slyly smiled. Father, this is Mother's, right? Are you secretly missing Nyangqin here? As soon as her voice fell, she seemed to have discovered that she had no memory of her mother. In fact, no one in the manor had ever mentioned anything about her mother. Ai. He sighed and sat down. Seeing this, Feng Jiu also stopped smiling and moved a chair to sit next to him. He handed the amethyst white jade hairpin back to him. Father, tell me about my mother. Is she still alive? I'm already 16 years old, but I've never heard you mention anything about my mother. Tell me about her. To be able to make her father not remarry for so many years and not have a single woman by his side, he must have loved her mother dearly. Only, she didn't know what kind of woman her mother was. To be able to make such an iron-willed man secretly hide here and look at her old things, feeling dejected and sad. Feng Xiao took the amethyst white jade hairpin and said, This amethyst white jade hairpin really is your mother's. Other than leaving you behind for father, she only left this hairpin. Father, since you love my mother so deeply, why haven't you mentioned her in all these years? What about my mother? Is she still alive? She asked again. Feng Xiao looked at the hairpin in his hand and said faintly, It's not that father doesn't want to mention her, but that father has forgotten her in the past. I don't know who she is, and where she is from. I only know that there is a woman in my heart, a woman that I always want to remember, but always can't remember. Ah! How could that be? She was slightly stunned. She couldn't remember. How could this be? Yes, I can't remember. I only remembered everything about your mother after I was ambushed by the Murongbo. Your mother was a kind and gentle beauty. She was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. But I only remembered her after so many years. I really deserved to die. Looking at her father's face full of self-blame, guilt, and pain, her gaze sank. She asked, Did someone do something to father? Why would they do something to him? Could it be that her mother's identity was not ordinary? Your mother and I were together, but her family and father didn't allow it. Everyone was against it because she was so outstanding, so beautiful, and I was just a martial artist. I wasn't worthy of her, but she didn't care about anything. She abandoned everything just to be with me. I couldn't even give her a proper wedding. Chapter 491. Your mother's name is Shangguan Wanrong. I met her when I went out to practice. At that time, I received a mercenary mission and met her when she was picking herbs. The people who followed her were killed, and she herself was seriously injured. I took her to hide from place to place and evaded those assassins. You don't know, do you? Your mother was an alchemist, an extremely talented alchemist. Feng Jiu listened quietly. She listened to her father talk in detail about how he met and fell in love with her mother. She listened to him talk about the hardships they went through during that time. She listened to him talk about how her mother was pregnant with her and had followed him back to the glorious Sun country when they were found by her family. You were stopped by my mother's family. What happened after that? Her heart skipped a beat. Listening to her father's recollection, she seemed to be able to see the thrilling scene at that time. A noble family, a young miss who was running away from home. Moreover, she was pregnant with a child without the permission of her family's elders. The consequences of being caught by her family and her father were unimaginable. Her father wanted to kill me and you, who were about to be born. She threatened him with her life and said that if anything happened to me or the child, she would not live alone. Later, her father took a step back and allowed her to give birth to the child. He told me to leave with the child and never see her again. She was also captured and brought back. The reason why I can't remember her is because her father had placed a seal on my memories. He had sealed all the memories related to her. It was also at that time that the seal was broken by a freak combination of factors. All these years, although I can't remember your mother, I can't remember anything about her. However, I always knew that there was someone in my heart. Someone who shouldn't be forgotten but was forgotten. If I hadn't broken the seal by a freak combination of factors, I really don't know if she would have been forgotten by me forever. Speaking to this point, his voice trembled slightly. Thinking about how he couldn't remember who his beloved was and how he couldn't remember anything about her, his heart couldn't help but tremble. Feng Jiu's heavy eyes moved slightly. She asked, "Father, you still haven't told me, which country is mother from?" "She's the eldest daughter of the Shangguan family of the Qi Tian Kingdom, a first-rate country in the eastern region." With that, Feng Xiao looked at her and said solemnly, "Xiao Jiu, I know you're very outstanding, but a first-class powerful country is too high for a small ninth-class country like ours. There are countless experts there. Even a small family from a first-class powerful country can't compete with them. You should know that there are thousands of ninth-class small countries in the eastern region, and there are only 10 first-class powerful countries in the whole eastern region. Even 100 sixth-class countries like the Qingtang Kingdom can't compare with them. You have to promise me that you'll hide this matter in your heart. You know that your mother is Shangguan Wanrong, you know where she came from, and you know that she's still alive. If the people in her family know that I've broken through the seal and remembered everything, then I'm afraid that what awaits us will be unhesitatingly strangling us. Because they don't allow people like us, who come from a small ninth-grade country, to taint the reputation of the aristocratic families of powerful countries. They don't allow people to know the relationship between us and the eldest daughter of the Shangguan family. Even more so, they don't allow their aristocrats to have any relationship with us. Chapter 492. Yes, she knew what to do. She knew that her mother was still alive and knew what kind of person her mother was. Then, she knew what she had to do. A faint light flashed through her smiling eyes as she comforted her father with a smile. She changed the topic and said, "Father, actually, I came here today because I have something to tell you." Feng Xiao composed himself and asked, "What is it?" "Recently, I have encountered a bottleneck in my cultivation and have been unable to break through. Then, Ling Mohan also told me not to rush to break through my cultivation. He said that what I lacked was an opportunity. So when I said that I wanted to go out and train, he said that he wanted to go with me and could even guide me. So, we came here today to tell you about this." Her voice paused, as if she had thought of something, and said, "Oh, that's right. When we came out, it was my brother who told me on the way that there was an opportunity for him to leave the black market. He said that there was a mercenary group for him to join. He thought that he would have to leave this place sooner or later, so he wanted to go out and gain experience, before he could enter the academy to further his studies." Hearing this, Feng Xiao nodded. This is a good thing. Shi Lin's talent is not low. As long as he performs well, his future will be extraordinary. It is good that he has such an opportunity to join the mercenary team. Father agrees, but you and Mohan. He looked at her and saw her carefree look. He could not help but sigh. What are you thinking? I think he is really good. No matter if it is his ability or his character, he is outstanding. More importantly, Father can see that he is sincere towards you. Father, you don't have to worry about me. I will make my own decisions. Father, I don't know how long I'll be gone this time, but you don't have to worry, I'll take care of myself. If there's a chance, I'll take the opportunity to inquire about grandfather, so you don't have to worry about grandfather. As long as there's news, I'll send it back. When I'm not by your side, you have to take care of yourself and wait for us to come back. Wait for me when I am back. Hearing this, Feng Xiao smiled. He patted her hand gently and said, "Okay, okay, okay. Father knows. You just have to take good care of yourself. Then, Father will not worry about you. I will leave the 4 golden essence adepts behind for Father to order around. In addition, I will also inform the Phoenix Guards. Luo Yu and the rest will also stay behind. Father, you can order them to do anything. I will take Leng Shuang away. Leng Hua will stay behind to take care of Father. You are not taking Luo Yu and the rest with you?" He was a little surprised. He thought that she would bring Luo Yu and the rest with her for training. She smiled and said, "They will stay behind. They are familiar with the Phoenix Guard's movements. Moreover, there are 8 of them. It will be too troublesome to bring them along. You." Chapter 493. Leng Hua. She rolled her eyes and thought for a moment before nodding. That's fine too. He hasn't been anywhere before, so I'll bring him along this time." She looked at him with a smile and said, "Father, you're the king now. If the palace is empty, you can't wait for me to come back and find me a bunch of colorful women." Hearing this, Feng Xiao was stunned for a moment, then he laughed and scolded, "You child, what nonsense are you saying? Is your father that kind of person?" He, I know Father isn't like that, but there's no guarantee that those people below won't give you women." Feng Xiao couldn't listen to her anymore and immediately shook his head and stood up. All right, it won't be good if you continue talking. Didn't you say that your brother and Mohan are here? Where are they? Let's go and take a look. They're at the pavilion on the rockery. I asked them to wait there." She smiled and held his hand as they walked out. In her heart, she was thinking that she had to tell Luo Yu and the others to not let anyone take advantage of this opportunity to stuff women into her father's hands. She still had plans to go and find her mother. The father and daughter pair arrived at the pavilion. Yama Lord and Guan Shilin, who were sitting and talking, stood up and greeted Feng Xiao. At his signal, they all sat down together. "Godfather, I plan to join the mercenary group and go out for a while. I'll be leaving tomorrow, so I came over today to inform you." Guan Shilin spoke first. "You're leaving tomorrow? So soon?" Feng Xiao was a little surprised and asked, "Have you arranged everything in the manor? You're going out on a long journey. Have you prepared everything?" "Yes, I've arranged everything in the manor. There aren't many people at home, so I'll just let the housekeeper look after the manor. Furthermore, it's next to the Feng manor, so there shouldn't be any problems. I've already prepared everything for the trip." Feng Xiao nodded and said, That's good. You must be careful when you go out. If anything happens, send someone to bring back news. Hearing this, Guan Shilin grinned. I will. Uncle Feng, I'll be leaving with Xiaojiu in 3 days. I'm here today to say goodbye. Ling Mohan said. In front of Feng Xiao, he had never put on the airs of a Yama lord. He had always regarded himself as a junior. Xiaojiu just told me. You guys too. You must be careful when you're outside. You can't be careless. Feng Xiao looked at him and said with a smile, with you by Xiaojiu's side to guide her, I'll be very relieved. Father, you should rest assured that I'm outside by myself. When have you ever seen me being bullied by others? As Fengjiu spoke, he took a sip of the tea on the table and picked up a piece of dessert to eat. He said casually, I've always been the one bullying others. If others want to bully me, hee, it's difficult. I heard that you got drunk in the manor that day. You're a girl. Remember not to drink when you're outside. It's fine if you get drunk at home, but if you get drunk outside, who knows what will happen. As soon as Feng Xiao finished speaking, she saw that her daughter, who was eating pastries, seemed to choke on them. Her pretty face flushed red. Cough cough. Cough. Fengjiu coughed a few times and quickly drank the tea. Only then did she feel better. Before she could catch her breath, she heard her father's voice. Chapter 494. Hearing Feng Jiu being reprimanded and seeing her choking on the pastries, Ling Mohan lowered his gaze and took a sip of tea, using the teacup to cover the overflowing smile at the corner of his mouth. Guan Shilin poured a cup of tea for Feng Jiu and said, drink more tea. Why did you choke on the pastries? Feng Jiu was embarrassed and her face was slightly red. She glared at the pretentious person and said, I'm fine, I just accidentally choked. Then, she said, Father, I know, I won't get drunk outside. If it wasn't for the person who tried to make her drunk, how could she have gotten drunk? She had a good tolerance for alcohol, okay? Father, I'll be staying in the palace for the next 2 days. I told you to move in earlier but you didn't. Look, I haven't seen you all day. He shook his head and said, since you're going out, remember to ask Ling Shuang to prepare everything for you. Yes, I know. I'll go see where Luo Yu and the others are and hand over some things. She stood up and said to Guan Shilin, brother, I'll send you off tomorrow. It's okay, you do what you need to do. You don't have to send me off tomorrow. Guan Shilin waved his hand and stood up, I won't stay any longer, I'll go back to the residence first. With that, he bid farewell to them and left. Mohan, how about we play a few games of chess? Feng Xiao looked at the Yama lord opposite him and asked. Since he had asked, he naturally wouldn't refuse. Hence, the two of them got someone to set up the chessboard and started playing chess in the pavilion. As for the other side, Fengjiu left first. After walking for a while, he couldn't help but pat his chest and sigh softly, I didn't do anything wrong, why am I so easily frightened? Ling Shuang, who was following behind him, heard this and a subtle smile appeared on his face. Hui Lang and the others said that Master is the Yama Lord's nemesis, but I think the Yama Lord is Master's nemesis. Hearing this, Fengjiu turned around and smiled, Ling Shuang, you're right. That guy is my nemesis, nothing good happens when I meet him. Ling Shuang didn't reply and just followed quietly. Fengjiu paused and said, that's right, I plan to bring Ling Hua with me this time. I didn't see him just now, go find out where he is and tell him to come with us. Hearing this, Ling Shuang's eyes lit up and his face couldn't help but overflow with joy, thank you, Master. He thanked her for giving her younger brother a chance to go out and see the world. What's there to thank me for? Go. I'll go check on Luo Yu and the others and tell them to keep an eye on them. She waved her hand, indicating that she should leave first to find Ling Hua. Yes, Ling Shuang responded gratefully and then went to find her younger brother to tell him the good news. When Fengjiu found Luo Yu and the others, they were sparring with the Phoenix Guards in the martial arts field. Seeing this, she called them to the side and gave them some instructions. However, before she could reply, she heard Luo Yu exclaim in shock, "Ah! Master is going out again. You're not taking us. Master, even if you don't take all 8 of us, at least take me with you. I can accompany you and protect you." Chapter 495. Master, we really want to go out with you to train. Please bring us along. When the others saw Luo Yu speak, they hurriedly chimed in. They really wanted to go out with her, especially after Luo Yu came back and told them about what happened when he went out with Master. They had been looking forward to it. Although they would encounter danger during the experiential learning, it was also an essential path of growth for cultivators. Especially when they were by Master's side, they would be able to understand her better. She could also give them some pointers outside, which would definitely be beneficial for them. However, Feng Jiu didn't plan to bring them along. Thus, she said, the Phoenix dynasty isn't very peaceful right now, and my father has just ascended to the throne not too long ago. I can't stay here forever, but you guys can. Help me guard this place well, and there will be plenty of benefits for you guys in the future. When there is a chance in the future, I will let you guys go out with me, but not now. Hearing her say this, the few of them knew that there was no hope and didn't mention it again. After all, she didn't look like she was joking. Since it was their master's order, they could only obey. Thus, the 8 of them looked at each other and replied in a deep voice, "Yes. Master, don't worry. We will protect the Emperor and Yunhua City well." Fengjiu gave them some instructions and lectured the Feng Wei before walking towards her palace. At this time, Ling Xuan and Ling Hua were already waiting in the palace. When they saw her return, the 2 of them went up to welcome her. "Master." She replied, her gaze landing on the excited Ling Hua. She smiled and said, "Prepare well. This time, I will bring you out to train. Even if you don't have any cultivation, you can barely protect yourself with Taiji. If there is an opportunity, you might be able to cultivate." Hearing this, Ling Hua's eyes sparkled. He asked excitedly and happily, "Master, are you saying that I will also have the chance to cultivate? But, I can't cultivate mystic energy, can I?" "You can't cultivate mystic energy, but when we go out, we can find a chance to test if you have the spiritual roots to cultivate. Then, won't you be able to cultivate?" She smiled and walked forward. When she entered the bedroom, she saw several trays on the table with more than 10 sets of red and white clothes on them. Ling Hua, who was excited by her words, followed closely behind. Seeing that she was looking at the clothes, he said, "A few days ago, a tailor came to the palace to help His Majesty make some clothes. At that time, His Majesty couldn't find His Majesty, so His Majesty ordered me to take a set of His Majesty's clothes and have them make 20 sets of different styles. I had them make 10 sets of men's clothing and 10 sets of women's clothing." Fengjiu picked up a set and looked at it. He compared it to his body and smiled. "Well, not bad. They all look good. Just in time. I don't have to worry about not having enough clothes for this trip." She turned around to look at the 2 of them and said with a smile, "You can leave now. There's no need to wait on me here. Go back and make some preparations. Oh right, get someone to bring Lao Bai and Qiuqiu here. We'll set off directly from the palace." "Yes." The 2 of them responded and left. 3 days later. Chapter 496. I want to bring Old Bai with me. I'll bring little Tun Yun with me too. Hey, look. Fengjiu appeared in front of them, dressed in men's clothing. She stepped forward and lifted her chin slightly, indicating for the Yama Lord to look at Little Ball. Ever since she saw Little Ball transform into its original form and swallow the nascent soul, she rarely called it Little Ball. Instead, she called it Little Tun Yun. After all, the scene of it swallowing the nascent soul was too unforgettable for her. No matter how she looked at it, she felt that little ball was no longer suitable for it. Seeing her appear in men's clothing, the dazzling red clothes were still as eye-catching and flamboyant as before, but it was no longer a woman's dress, but a man's robe. Because she was dressed as a man, her entire person exuded a devilish charm and a free and easy aura. She was a living example of a noble young master. Her extremely exquisite and outstanding appearance, even though she was dressed as a man, made his eyes move slightly. Suddenly, he felt that the beggar's outfit suited her. Yes, it would be better if she smeared some mud or herbs on her face. That would be even better. Fengjiu, who walked out, glanced at him and asked, "You're not planning to go out like this, are you?" The Yama lord raised his eyebrows. "What else? Stick your uncle's beard on your face and change into a less eye-catching robe." She lifted her chin slightly, looking a little narcissistic. Her tone was light and cheerful as she said, "It's fine as long as I'm the good-looking one. Otherwise, it'll be too eye-catching if we walk together. Sigh, I don't think it'll be a good scene just thinking about it." Hearing her words, the Yama lord was speechless. He glanced at her with a strange expression. "I think it'll be better if you change into a beggar's outfit and smear some dust on your face. Do you want to change too?" "How can that be?" Fengjiu glared at him with her bright eyes. "I'm planning to go out and seduce a few beauties." When she said that, even she laughed. "Moreover, I feel that with my handsome face and elegant temperament, the moment I walk out of the door, the hearts of beautiful girls will definitely pound. So, don't ruin my good fortune. Hurry up and change out of those clothes and stick a big beard on your face. How nice would it be to look like an uncle?" Ling Shuang's eyes softened as he looked at her with a faint smile on his face. Ling Hua, on the other hand, smiled happily as he watched his dazzling master torment the Yama lord. Hui Lang and Kage One, who were following behind the Yama lord, looked at each other and quietly retreated outside. Fortunately, before their master went out, he had flipped through his clothes and picked out the jade belt and the color of his robe. Unexpectedly, the ghost doctor felt that he was too dazzling and handsome. She was afraid that he would steal her limelight, so she asked their master to change into an uncle's outfit. Well, although it would be more convenient for him to go out with his identity, their master had planned to show off his endless masculine charm along the way. He also planned to use his masculine charm to seduce the ghost doctor. But now, if he changed into an uncle's outfit, how could this idea be carried out? The two of them secretly glanced at their master and couldn't help but mourn for him. Needless to say, their master would definitely follow the ghost doctor's words and change into an uncle's outfit. Sure enough, just as the two of them were thinking about it, they heard their master's voice. "Then I'll change here. Come in and help me." As he spoke, he walked towards Fengjiu's room. Chapter 497. Fengjiu and the others did not leave on horseback or in a carriage. Instead, they left in a spaceship. Other than the Phoenix guards who were reluctant to part, the only person who saw them off was Feng Xiao, who was worried about them. The Feng family was now part of the Phoenix dynasty, and they were protected by powerful cultivators. Naturally, they were extraordinary. Even when the people in the city saw the spaceship flying out of the palace, they were only surprised and did not say anything. As for the spaceship, little Tun Yun and Lao Bai were lying outside. They looked at the clouds in the sky from time to time. Leng Hua had a happy smile on his face. He was as happy as a child who was going out to play with an adult. Other than the fear he felt when he first sat on the spaceship and looked down at the sky, there was only joy left on his face after he gradually got used to it. Unlike the others, he first familiarized himself with the spaceship inside and out. Then, he prepared tea and snacks for them so that they could drink tea, eat snacks, and chat on the spaceship to relax. Yama Lord, who was sitting outside, watched the spaceship fly forward. He glanced at Fengjiu, who had been blinking her beautiful eyes ever since she boarded the spaceship. He took a sip of the tea that Leng Hua had brewed. "Tell me. What are you up to now?" He. Feng Jiu smiled embarrassedly, but her eyes were sparkling as she looked at him. "Uncle, with your status, you should be able to enter a third-class country, right? The stronger the country, the more proof of identity was needed to enter. A jade pass was not easy to get. You want to go to a third-class country? Which country are you going to? What's the reason?" He did not answer her directly. Instead, he asked. Hearing this, Feng Jiu sat up straight. The smile on her face disappeared. She said, "I have a clue. My grandfather should be in the third-class country, the Yen Kingdom. I don't want to go to the mountains or forests this time. I just want to go to the Yen Kingdom to ask for information." Ling Mohan glanced at her and said, "Don't you know how to be a pharmacist? Why don't you go to the pharmacist guild and get the badge of a medicine saint? With your talent in alchemy, you should have reached the level of an alchemy sage. With this identity, you can even freely enter a first or second-class country, let alone a third-class country." She frowned and said, "But I've seen the information. Only the pharmacists' guilds in third-class countries have the ability to take the medicine saint level examination. Those below third-class countries can only reach the medicine grandmaster level at most. Aren't you going to die in? When the time comes, find a chance to get the medicine sage's badge back." She was secretly planning in her heart. Just her identity as a princess of the Phoenix dynasty was not enough to attract those people's attention, but if she could obtain a badge of astonishing strength in the field of medicine or alchemy, then it would be different. On the other hand, Feng Jiu, who had no idea what he was planning, was plotting in her heart. Her mother was in the first-class Qi Tian kingdom and she was thinking of a way to get there. Since the medicine saint's badge was a form of identification that allowed one to travel freely between countries, she had to get her hands on it no matter what. The flying ship shuttled through the clouds steadily, carrying the thoughts and expectations of the few people on the ship as it headed towards the Yen Kingdom. At this moment, in a certain family in the Yen Kingdom, old Master Feng, who was in high spirits, had the wine gourd that Feng Jiu had given him hanging on his waist. He quietly slipped to the back wall and looked around. When he saw that there was no one around, he planned to climb the wall and sneak away. "Where are you going?" Chapter 498. However, what awaited him was not the hard ground, but a warm, soft, and fragrant embrace. Old Master Feng froze and didn't dare to move. His voice was even softer than a mosquito's as he stammered, Su Shi, this doesn't look good. Let go of me and let me down." When the shadow guards saw this scene, the corners of their mouths twitched and they looked away. How could it look good? An old man being held in the arms of a beautiful woman who looked to be in her 20s. This scene was already unbearable. The woman was dressed in a simple but elegant dark green dress with a belt of the same color around her waist. Delicate tassels fell to the side of her waist and her skirt fluttered in the breeze. Her ink-black hair was tied up and her eyes were picturesque. She was gentle and beautiful. At this moment, her eyes were curved and there was a smile in her limpid eyes. Looking at the person she was holding in her arms, her gentle voice had a trace of teasing, "Isn't this good? How could it be? I think it's quite good." Sensing his tension, she frowned and scolded, "You're really too much. You're not young anymore. Why are you still trying to climb the wall like a young boy? Fortunately, I caught you. If I didn't catch you, you would have fallen and broken your bones." Master Feng was so embarrassed that he wanted to find a place to hide. When he was caught, he covered his face with his sleeves and didn't dare to see anyone. But when he was held, he didn't dare to struggle or move. God knew that after living for so many years, the thing he was most afraid of wasn't his dead father, nor was it his deceased wife. It was this woman who had been waiting for him silently and didn't get married. She was born in the Great Yen Kingdom, a third-class country. She had an enviable family background. Her appearance and character were first class, but for him, she never married and waited silently for him. He felt guilty in his heart. Therefore, when he was kidnapped by her people this time, although he was angry, he could not vent his anger on her. Moreover, her brother was his sworn brother. This really gave him a headache. He was already an old man. Although she was younger than him by 10 years, in order to preserve her peak appearance, she had taken the face-establishing pill. Her appearance had never aged, and she looked like a young woman in her 20s. This old thing, how could he dare to covet her? Just thinking about it made him so embarrassed that he wanted to find a hole to hide in. Seeing that he was so embarrassed that he covered his face with his sleeve, Lin Sushi pursed her lips and smiled. Only then did she put him down. Who knew that when she landed, she saw him running back to his room. Seeing this, she couldn't help but stare at him and scold him in embarrassment. Feng Sanyuan. Do you think you can hide? Dodge, dodge, dodge. How many years has it been, and you still want to hide? Believe it or not, I'll directly do you tonight. Hearing this, Master Feng, who was about to step over the threshold, was so shocked that he fell to the ground. He directly used his head to knock open the door and rolled out. He turned around to look at the beautiful woman, whose eyes were filled with shame and anger. His face was deathly pale, and with a bang, he quickly closed the door. Then, there was another banging sound, as if someone was using something in the room to block the door and windows. The secret guards who were in charge of keeping watch in the dark were so shocked by these fierce words that their jaws almost fell. They swallowed their saliva and looked at the elegant and gentle beauty. If they didn't hear it with their own ears, they wouldn't believe that such fierce words would come from her mouth. Chapter 499. Ha 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 ha! A loud laugh rang out, and a man who looked to be in his 40s walked out. He wore simple black robes, and his usually dignified face could not help but reveal a smile at this moment. In particular, when his gaze landed on the elegantly dressed woman, there was a hint of helplessness in his eyes. Su Shi, you'll scare Sanyuan like this. The person who came was the head of the Lin family, Lin Wuheng. He was also Lin Su Shi's older brother and Old Master Feng's sworn brother. Although Lin Wuheng was older than Old Master Feng, his appearance had always been in peak condition. He looked like a man who had just entered middle age and didn't look old at all. As the head of the Lin family, his cultivation wasn't bad and he had just entered the nascent soul realm. Big brother. She helplessly turned around and called out. Looking at the tightly shut door, she frowned with worry. Look, he's avoiding me like a mouse seeing a cat. It's as if I'm a wolf, tiger, or leopard. Am I really that scary? As she spoke, she couldn't help but touch her face. For the first time, she didn't have confidence in her appearance. She even thought, was it really the right choice for her to take the face-establishing pill to maintain her appearance? If she was as old as he was today, would he be able to accept her more easily? Looking at his little sister, Lin Wuheng's eyes were filled with pity. Their family of 4 brothers only had this one little sister. Not only did their parents dote on her like a treasure, but the 4 brothers also protected her from a young age. But they didn't expect that when he brought back the sworn brother he met outside, this girl would fall in love with him at first sight. But at that time, Sanyuan was already married and his wife was already pregnant. At that time, everyone tried to persuade her and even gathered the portraits of all the outstanding unmarried young men in the city for her to choose. But this girl was stubborn. Seeing that she had decided on Sanyuan, his family gathered together and discussed finding Sanyuan. They didn't care that he was from a 9th-ranked country. They only hoped that he could treat Su Shi well and let him take Su Shi as his second wife. Who knew that after this girl found out, she would directly reject this matter? Even now, he could still clearly remember that she had a serious expression at that time and said, "It's true that I, Lin Su Shi, fell in love with Feng Sanyuan, but I don't want to be a bad woman who destroys a family. A relationship cannot tolerate a third party. Since he has already married his wife, then I will wait. Just the word wait had made her wait for a few decades. She watched from afar. Just as she said, she didn't destroy his family. She didn't let his wife know that there was a woman like her waiting foolishly. She watched him give birth to a child, watched him and his wife love each other, watched their child grow up, watched them have a granddaughter. After decades of waiting, her heart was tired and full of scars. Under the advice of her family, she went into seclusion to cultivate. She turned her longing into the motivation for her cultivation. She cultivated day and night, not listening to outside news and not thinking about that person. Until recently, when she came out of seclusion, she found out that his wife had passed away more than 10 years ago. Because of this, she sent people to kidnap him. Chapter 500. I know. Her brows relaxed and she revealed a gentle smile. Now that I can see him by my side, I'm happy. Hearing this, Lin Buheng looked at her with a strange expression. He coughed dryly and asked, "He's an old man now. Do you really like him? Although the two of you are only 10 years apart in age, your appearance has always remained the same. He's different. Why don't you think about it again?" Fine. Actually, he didn't understand what his sister liked about Sanyuan. When he was young, he could still have a good appearance. But now, he was already over 60 years old. How could she still take a fancy to an old man? Moreover, it wasn't what he wanted to say. It was because the difference in appearance between the two of them was too big. It was really awkward to look at. He also felt that Sanyuan was so old while Su Shi was still so young. All these years, even when he knew that his wife had passed away, he never told Su Shi. Who knew? Unexpectedly, Su Shi smiled and looked at Lin Buheng. Big brother, he's always been Sun Yuan's older brother. He hasn't changed. Ah. Forget it, forget it. Do as you wish. In any case, you've already kidnapped him. I don't care anymore. He waved his hand and said. Suddenly, his expression froze. Look, after being disturbed by your matter, I almost forgot about the important matter. What important matter? She asked. I'll call Sanyuan out. This matter is his Feng family's matter. Lin Buheng smiled and walked towards the tightly shut door. He shouted, Sanyuan, come out quickly. I have good news for you. Big brother, you can say whatever you want. I can hear you here. I won't go out. Old Master Feng, who was hiding inside, blocked the door. He drank some wine to calm himself down. His old face was red and his hands and feet were trembling slightly. It seemed that he was really frightened. How could he not be frightened? He was already a pile of old bones. He really couldn't stand being frightened. Hearing his trembling voice, Lin Buheng turned around and glared at his sister. Look at how frightened he was. Even his voice was trembling. Su Shi was also angered by him, which was why she said those words. Now that she calmed down, she felt a bit embarrassed. Seeing that he was really frightened by her words, she didn't know what to do for a moment. She really didn't want to scare him. Brother Sanyuan, come out. I was just joking. She said a bit embarrassedly. Inside, Elder Feng was sitting on the ground blocking the door. He held the wine gourd in his arms and drank a few more mouthfuls. When he heard her words, he instinctively shook his head. No, I won't go out even if you beat me to death. Seeing this, Su Shi looked at her brother for help. Go back first. I'll talk to him. Lin Buheng smiled and waved for her to leave. All right then. Helplessly, she could only agree. However, after thinking about it, she said worriedly, but big brother, don't let brother Sanyuan leave. If he really leaves, he will definitely hide. I know. Lin Buheng sighed in his heart. Seeing her leave, he shook his head and knocked on the door. Sanyuan, Su Shi left. Open the door. I really have something to tell you. It's about your Feng family. Old Master Feng heard this and thought about the Feng family's situation. He was also worried. He immediately asked, she really left? She left. Lin Wuheng smiled in response. Hearing this, Old Master Feng moved away the chair and table that was blocking the door. He carefully opened the door a crack and poked his head out to take a look. After confirming that she was gone, he let out a sigh of relief. Chapter 501. Seeing him like this, Lin Wuheng shook his head and laughed. You don't know how lucky you are. What's wrong with Su Shi? She actually makes you avoid her like she's a snake or a scorpion. Old Master Feng smiled bitterly. Big brother, don't make fun of me. You know that Su Shi is too good. I'm really not good enough for her. Also, I'm just an old man. How would I dare to think about that? Then what do you think we should do? Su Shi isn't joking. She can wait for you for a few decades. She can wait forever. Do as you see fit. I can't help you with this. He walked in and saw that he had messed up the tables and chairs in the room. He couldn't help but shake his head and say, let's sit outside in the courtyard. Look at your place. What's wrong with it? As he spoke, he turned around and walked out. He sat down at the stone table in the courtyard and ordered someone to prepare tea and bring it over. Old Master Feng followed him and sat opposite him. He quickly asked anxiously, Big brother, you said you have news about my Feng family? What is it? How is my granddaughter now? Did that Morongbo bully her when I wasn't around? Ever since he was kidnapped, he had been worried about his family. Feng Shao couldn't show his face, so everything was done by that girl. He didn't know if that Morongbo would use any tricks to deal with her. Although she was outstanding, she was still young. How could she be a match for that Morongbo? Huh, your granddaughter isn't ordinary. Lin Wuheng chuckled and looked at him. Do you know what happened in the country of Glorious Sun recently? Seeing that he was nervous and couldn't hide the worry in his eyes, he didn't keep him in suspense. He said, the country of Glorious Sun is gone. Morongbo is also dead. Your Feng family has taken over the country and changed its name to the Phoenix Dynasty. The king is your son, Feng Shao. This news spread in a few days. What? How is this possible? Old Master Feng was stunned. He couldn't believe it. Morongbo was dead in such a short time. Moreover, the Glorious Sun Empire was changed to the Phoenix Dynasty. She became the Feng family's. How is this possible? What's impossible? Your granddaughter is not ordinary. He smiled and told him everything he knew in detail. When he reached the part where a powerful cultivator helped them kill a nascent soul cultivator, his expression became a bit strange. Nascent soul stage powerhouses were rare, but the powerhouse who killed a nascent soul stage old monster with a snap of his fingers was even rarer. Such a character was definitely a character from an ordinary country. However, how could such a powerhouse come to an inconspicuous Feng family in a mere 9th-class country? And he even stepped in to protect her. After listening to him, old Master Feng's face was full of shock. His heart was in turmoil. He didn't expect this. Dazzling had actually changed to the Phoenix Dynasty, and it had even become their Feng clans. The monarch had even become his son. Why did this feel like a dream? Feng Shao and the Feng girl were too bold, weren't they? I came to tell you after I received the news, lest you keep worrying about what would happen to the Feng family. Now that you've heard the news, you should be relieved, right? He smiled and couldn't help but laugh when he saw the disbelief on old Master Feng's face. Chapter 502. After a long while, old Master Feng regained his senses and muttered, "How can I be at ease? How could it be so easy to control a country? Feng Shao is just a general. He doesn't know how to scheme at all. Now that he's the king, the surrounding countries will be restless. No, no, I have to go back. I won't be at ease if I don't go back. Didn't you hear what I said? Your son's strength is now stronger than yours. He's already become a martial emperor. Furthermore, on the night he broke through, a blessing descended from the heavens. His position as the emperor is stable. You don't have to worry about others shaking his position. Furthermore, with that strong cultivator around, the surrounding small countries won't dare to offend your Phoenix dynasty." As Lin Wuheng spoke, he continued, "According to the news, in my opinion, your son and granddaughter aren't as useless as you say. My people told me that the Phoenix dynasty is stable in all aspects, and the surrounding small nations have also sent people over to congratulate you. To be able to stabilize the internal and external situation in such a short period of time, other than your son and granddaughter's ability, it's also because you have many experts protecting you. Didn't you say there were 4 golden core cultivators? 4 golden core cultivators in a rank 9 small country isn't something an ordinary army can defend against. So you can stay here at ease. Don't think about leaving. You heard it too. When Sushi left, she told me not to let you sneak away. As her big brother, I can't let her down. Big brother, can you bear to let me down?" Old Master Feng wanted to cry but had no tears. He originally wanted to take this opportunity to go back, but who knew that the Phoenix dynasty was stable and didn't need an old man like him to go back and help oversee things. They wanted him to stay here, and there was also that Sushi. Just thinking about her made his scalp numb. "I'm just an old man. I'm really not worthy of Sushi. Big brother, please persuade her." He could do whatever he wanted in Yunhua City, but here, his strength wasn't enough. Even if he wanted to escape, he couldn't. Thinking about it, he felt anxious. What if Sushi was afraid that he would sneak away and really forced him to go through the wedding ceremony? Just thinking about it made him break out in cold sweat and his hands and feet tremble. I also said that you're just a rotten old man. You look even older than me, but who asked her to be so stubborn? I've already tried to persuade her. Since I can't persuade her, I want to persuade you as her big brother. It's rare for Sushi to be sincere to you. Just follow her." Speaking of him, even he couldn't help but laugh. Fine. He also felt that these two people were strange no matter how he looked at them. They were indeed not compatible, but in this world, he had never heard of any pill or medicine that could restore one's youth. Otherwise, he could help him get it. That way, he would probably feel a little better. Big brother. Old Master Feng was speechless. He really couldn't stand his teasing. This wasn't fun at all. Instead, it was too embarrassing. He really didn't have the face to do that. Since it didn't work here, he would think of another way. He didn't believe that he couldn't sneak out of the Lin clan. Chapter 503. Lin Wuheng had lived for close to 100 years. How could he not know what he was thinking? He only glanced at him and smiled. Of course. If you want to go out, let Sushi accompany you. You haven't been here for so many years. This place has changed a lot. It's good to take a walk. Big brother, I'll tell you the truth. Whenever I see Sushi, I just want to hide. I'm really scared of her. Old Master Feng didn't drink tea. Instead, he took a sip from his wine gourd and said, "If my son and granddaughter knew about this, where would I put my old face?" Hearing this, Lin Wuheng wasn't too happy. His face immediately darkened. "What? My sister Sushi is so unworthy of your attention? She's a disgrace to you. Why don't you think about who made her wait for so many years? You only think about your old face. Why don't you think about how much gossip Sushi has to endure? Why don't you think about how difficult it was for her to achieve this? Big brother, you know that's not what I meant. Old Master Foam sighed. He didn't know what to say anymore. If he continued, it would only make things worse. Lin Buheng put down his teacup and stood up. You're familiar with this, Lin. Other than not wanting you to leave, the residents didn't restrict your movements. You can go wherever you want to go and see wherever you want to. I've already told them that the people in the residence don't dare to disrespect you. What are you unhappy about? Let's not talk about anything else. We brothers haven't seen each other for so many years. Now that you're in the Lin residence, shouldn't we find a chance to get together for a drink? But look at yourself. You hide in this courtyard all day. I feel embarrassed for you. Moreover, you haven't seen Su Shi for so many years. Can't you have a good chat with her? Ask her how she's been all these years. Think about it carefully. Don't always think about running away. If you do, I'll help Su Shi go to the Phoenix Dynasty to arrest you. After saying this, Lin Buheng didn't stop. He walked away to let Su Shi think about it carefully. Old Master Feng sighed and sat down in the courtyard to drink wine. The hidden guards in the shadows looked at each other in dismay. They really didn't know why they were so conflicted about such a good thing. A few days later, a spaceship gradually approached the border city of the Yen Kingdom. Fengjiu did not want to attract too much attention, so he wanted them to get off the spaceship and walk to the city gate. However, Ling Mohun said it was not a big deal, so the spaceship stopped directly outside the city gate. For a third-tier country, spaceships were very common. Unlike the people from a ninth-tier country, they would not surround a spaceship the moment they saw one. However, they were still scrutinized by the people around them. This was because other than the luxurious spaceship, their clothes, appearance, and temperament were all extremely outstanding. It was impossible for them not to attract attention. The people guarding the city gate also thought that they were the children of some noble family. Therefore, when they approached, the person in charge of identity verification made it convenient for them. They did not need to be excluded and could directly come to the front to verify their identity jade tablet. Ling Mohun stood beside Fengjiu and did not go forward. Only Hui Lang went forward and handed over something. The person guarding the city gate was shocked. After bowing respectfully to them, he quickly opened the city gate to let them in. Chapter 504. What's that thing? How come you can come in without even asking? Fengjiu, who had just entered the city, turned around and sat on Lao Bai's back. She was dressed in red and riding a white horse, looking very dashing. She was a little curious. At that time, she did not see clearly what Hui Lang had taken out. She only knew that it looked like a jade tablet. What kind of identity jade tablet could make the guards of the border city show such a respectful expression? Naturally, it's something that represents my identity. He glanced at her, who was dazzling and charming as she sat on the horse. He only felt that the red and white horse really suited her. Especially when she was dressed in men's clothing. She looked valiant and formidable, but also had an evil and charming aura. The corners of her eyes were slightly raised, and the charm emitted from her eyes seemed to fill the sky. She, who knew that her charm was boundless and could attract both men and women, was sitting on the horse's back at this moment. From time to time, she would throw seductive glances at the young girls on both sides, causing his entire face to darken. This woman, walking around in men's clothing, was indeed like what she had said. She came out to seduce people. His deep gaze swept across the bustling street in front of him, and landed on a restaurant about 100 meters away. His voice was low and cold. Let's go over there and sit for a while. Let Hui Lang buy a map of the Yen dynasty. Then we will know where the pharmacists' guild is. Hearing this, Fengjiu, who was sitting leisurely on Lao Bai's back, blinked her eyes. Just as she was about to respond, she saw something thrown at her. She instinctively caught it, and when she looked down, she was stunned. It was actually a handkerchief with some seasonal fruits wrapped in it. She raised her head and looked around. She saw a few girls on the second floor looking at her shyly with bright eyes. When they saw her looking at them, they even revealed a shy smile at her. Seeing this, her eyebrows raised slightly, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly, returning a charming smile. After that, she even picked up the handkerchief in her hand that was wrapped with fragrant fruits and sniffed it with an intoxicated expression, causing the women to scream out in excitement. Some of them even crazily wrapped the handkerchief in their hands with some fruits and threw them at her. Suddenly, a shocking scene appeared on the street. The women on the roadside, and even the young women in the shops and tea-houses on both sides of the street, used handkerchiefs to wrap cantaloupes and small fruits and threw them to the handsome red-clothed noble young master sitting on the back of the white horse. In order to avoid being hit, Fengjiu could only reach out and catch them one by one. When he opened them, he saw that they were all fruits and the like. Seeing this, his handsome face couldn't help but reveal a little pride. He softly said, "This young master's charm is boundless. There are so many fruits, I don't even need to buy them." With a smile on his face, Leng Hua took out a basket and put the melon seeds into it. The basket was filled with red and green melon seeds. Coupled with the handkerchief, the peddlers and shopkeepers on both sides of the street were surprised and murmured. "Who is that? Where did this handsome noble young master come from? This group of people seems to have just entered the city, right? More than half of the women in the city have come out. They are really capable." Hui Lang and Ning Yi, who were following beside him, saw this and the corners of their mouths twitched. Then they looked at their master's dark face and his entire body emitting a cold aura. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 505. Finally, they arrived at the restaurant. Fengjiu handed Lao Bai over to the waiter to tie him up. Little Tun Yun followed him inside. When she turned around to look, she was startled. There were actually dozens of young women behind her, all of them looking at her with adoration in their eyes, causing the smile on her lips to immediately stiffen. "Young master, where did you come from?" "Young master, my family owns an inn. It's right in front. If young master and the others want to stay, I won't charge you." "Young master, my family is a wealthy family in the city. There are a few courtyards that are unoccupied. Would young master like to stay in my residence temporarily?" Young master. Their questions were filled with eagerness and excitement. They all surrounded her. Feng Nine smiled awkwardly as she was stared at affectionately by all those pairs of eyes. She looked at Ling Mohan for help. Unexpectedly, he snorted coldly and walked in by himself. "Ladies, I appreciate your kind intentions. Please go back." She flashed a smile at them and hurriedly left behind a sentence. Then, she hurriedly entered the restaurant and walked towards the room on the second floor. Hui Lang and the others stopped her. They only turned and followed after Fengjiu when she went up to the room. Seeing this, the women gradually dispersed, but there were still one or two who were unwilling to leave. They kept looking at the second floor from time to time, hoping that Fengjiu would come out again so that they could take a look at her. Fengjiu sat down at the table in the room. She sighed softly. The women in the city are really passionate. She was really frightened. Why did they all chase after her? Didn't you enjoy it? Ling Mohan glanced at her and said coldly. It's hard to enjoy a beauty's grace. It's not good to have too much of it. I can't digest it. She smiled and poured herself a cup of water. At this moment, Leng Shuang and Leng Hua walked in. Ying Yi stood guard outside the room. Hui Lang went to buy a map of the Yen kingdom. "Master, I've washed all the fruits." Leng Hua placed the washed fruits in the basket on the table and retreated to the side. "That's quite a lot." She picked up a fruit and ate it while saying to Leng Shuang and Leng Hua, "Help yourself." There's too much to eat. As she spoke, she casually handed one to Ling Mohan who was sitting next to her. Here, it's a gift from my admirer. No need. He drank the water and lowered his gaze, not looking at her. He didn't take the fruit. Seeing this, Fengjiu did not insist. After eating 2 fruits, the dishes on the table were almost all served. Because there were not many people, she asked Leng Shuang and Leng Hua to sit down and eat together. She then shouted outside, "Ying Yi, come in and eat together. Let's eat while waiting for Hui Lang." Ying Yi, who was outside, did not dare to go in. Let him eat at the same table as the master. It would be strange if he could eat it. No need, they'll find their own food when they're hungry. Ling Mohan said as he poured the wine and ate with the dishes. Leng Shuang and Leng Hua did not have as many rules as them. Fengjiu asked them to sit down and eat. They did not stand on ceremony and took whatever they wanted to eat. It was slower than they expected. Hui Lang waited until they were full before coming back. "Master, Ghost Doctor, this is the map of the Yen Kingdom. The address of the Pharmacist Guild is here. I've seen it. If we take the airship, we should be there in half a day." He pointed to a place marked on the map and said. "Okay, then let's go after eating." Chapter 506. Hui Lang Xing Yi also ordered a few dishes. After the 2 of them had eaten, the group left again. This time, because they had entered the border city of the Yen Kingdom, the airship could be taken out and used directly. Fengjiu flicked his sleeve and a luxurious airship appeared. Just as the crowd was exclaiming, the group of people boarded the airship one after another. Lao Bai and the cloud-swallowing beast had already jumped on skillfully and found a place to lie down. "Look! That airship is so luxurious. Those people are really from the aristocracy. Only the aristocracy can afford such a luxurious airship. That red-robed man's temperament is so outstanding. He doesn't look like someone from an ordinary family." "That's true. Look at that group of people, they don't look like people to be trifled with, especially that bearded man. He's so cold." Looking at the group of people leaving in the luxurious airship, some of the women were full of melancholy. That kind of person was too outstanding. They were not from the same world as them. After half a day, they arrived at the town where the Pharmacist Guild was located. They got off the airship at the city gate and went on foot. Perhaps because he was frightened by the women in the border city, Fengjiu did not dare to sit on Lao Bai's back to pretend to be cool. He only let Leng Hua hold Lao Bai's hand. As for the cloud-swallowing beast, it naturally walked beside them obediently. Its round and snow-white appearance frequently attracted the gazes of some women and children. Fengjiu saw that it was already evening and the sky was getting dark. He said, "It's getting late. Let's find a place to rest for the night and go tomorrow morning." Ling Mohan responded, indicating that he had no objections. Since the 2 masters had no objections, the rest naturally had no objections. Therefore, they found an inn not too far away from the Pharmacist Guild. After allocating the rooms, Ling Mohan wanted to go out with her. Who knew that after knocking for a long time, there was no response? It was Hui Lang who came forward and said, "Master, I saw a ghost." He glanced around and paused. He swallowed back the words, "Ghost Doctor," and said, "I saw the 9th young master take the 2 of them shopping." It would have been better if he didn't say that. Once he said that, Ling Mohan's face darkened. He glanced at him coldly and then turned back to the room. Hui Lang touched his nose and looked at Ying Yi who was guarding the door. He silently asked, "Did I say something wrong again?" Ying Yi glanced at him and then looked away. On the other side, Fengjiu, who was in an extremely good mood, walked around the streets with Leng Shuang and Leng Hua. "Leng Hua. Leng. It's more lively outside, right?" Leng Hua's eyes sparkled, unable to hide his joy, and, "Thank you master for bringing me out. In the past, his health was not good, so he could not go out much. Later on, when he followed his master, he spent most of his time in the mansion. This was the first time he came to such a place and saw the prosperity of a big country. She chuckled and looked around the streets aimlessly. However, she kept turning left and right, as if there was a way to go. The two men behind him followed quietly without asking any questions until they came to a place with the words Black Market hanging in gold on the door. At this time, the two men realized that their master wanted to go to the black market when he said that he was out for a stroll. Chapter 507. Fengjiu glanced at the two of them and said, "I'm looking for your steward." As he spoke, he handed over a token. When the guard saw the token, his eyes narrowed. He quickly took it with both hands and said respectfully, "Young master, please come in. I'll immediately report to the steward." One of them quickly took the token to report to the steward, while the other brought them in. After handing the token to the person inside, the guard left. The person inside brought them to the main hall of the market and served them tea and pastries. The steward, who was chatting with two middle-aged men in another room, heard the knock on the door. He couldn't help but scold, "Blind thing. Don't you know I'm receiving an important guest?" The knocking stopped. The guard hesitated for a moment, but still reported, "Steward, someone came with a black token and wants to see you." Hearing this, the steward inside was slightly surprised. He looked at the other two people. Seeing them nod, he said, "Come in." The guard came in and didn't dare to look around. He only respectfully handed the black token in his hand forward. "Steward, this is the black token of our black market. I didn't dare to be negligent. I've asked someone to bring them to the main hall." The steward took a look and saw that it was the representative of their black market. He couldn't help but be surprised. He handed the black token to the two people sitting at the side and asked at the same time, "Who is this person who came with the black token?" "It's a very handsome young master in red. He's about 15 or 16 years old. He only has two attendants, one male and one female." The guard reported. You can leave first." He waved his hand, indicating for him to leave. "Yes." The guard left and the door closed. At this time, the three people in the room spoke again. "This black token is indeed from our black market. Every black token that is given out will be registered and reported. Moreover, it's not easy for ordinary people to get a black token. How could a young man have such a black token? No matter how he got it, since he came with the black token, I have to meet him." As the steward spoke, he was about to retrieve the black medallion when he saw the middle-aged man move his hand away. The steward looked at him in surprise, not understanding what he meant. "This black token doesn't recognize people." He looked at the steward and suddenly said such a sentence. The steward and the middle-aged man were startled. After a long while, the steward slightly frowned and said, "I'm afraid this is not good. We all work in the black market and should know the rules. Moreover, the young man can get the black token. I'm afraid his identity is not simple. If the higher-ups know, the consequences are not something we can bear. I'll go with you. I also want to know where this young man came from. You actually have a black order?" The middle-aged man stood up, looked at the black token in his hand, and said, "Maybe this black token isn't his." The man next to him wanted to persuade him, but in the end, he didn't say anything. Instead, he stood up together, meaning that he also wanted to see what kind of person this young man was. Knowing their thoughts, the steward sighed and said, "But I still have to remind you that if the young man can come with the black token, he is the most distinguished guest of our black market. You can't mess around." "Mess around? You think too much." The middle-aged man smiled and made a gesture to let him go first. Chapter 508. When they arrived at the entrance of the great hall and walked in, the gazes of the three people landed on the young man in red robes. Seeing that the young man was extraordinarily handsome, their eyes flashed slightly and they walked in without batting an eyelid. The young man sitting on the left side of the great hall was wearing a dazzling red robe that was as eye-catching as fire. His delicate and handsome face was even rarer. The aura on his body was only the aura of profound energy, and it was the aura of a martial grandmaster. For such a young man to have the cultivation of a martial grandmaster, it could be seen that he was a disciple of an aristocratic family and had some talent. Looking at the young man again, he did not sit upright like the other disciples of aristocratic families. Instead, his 2 knees were crossed and his 2 legs were lightly crossed. There was a sense of carefreeness in his laziness, and a sense of wanton unrestrained. Sitting in the great hall, the young man did not have a trace of nervousness or uneasiness. On the contrary, his body emitted a kind of unrestrained and cold aura. It was a kind of unrestrained aura that did not match his seemingly harmless and handsome face. It was this kind of unrestrained aura that made the 3 people who entered put away their original thoughts. As for the man and woman standing behind him, they were directly ignored by them because their strength was simply not enough to look at. I've made you wait. The manager collected his thoughts and a warm smile appeared on his face. He did not care that the other party was only a 15 or 16-year-old youth and stepped forward to cup his hands in greeting. My surname is Huang and I'm the manager of this black market. May I know how to address you? From the moment they entered, Fengjiu had sensed that they were sizing her up, but she did not pay them any attention. At this moment, after taking a sip of tea, she raised her eyes to look at them. Her gaze swept past the 2 people behind Manager Huang and landed directly on Manager Huang. With an indifferent glance, she could tell that he was a cultivator of the golden core stage. The higher the rank of the black market of another country, the higher the strength of the manager. She was not surprised that he had such strength. As for the 2 people behind him, they were also cultivators of the golden core stage and their cultivations were in the intermediate stage. However, why did she feel so displeased when one of them looked at her? I wonder if Manager Huang is here to receive a guest. Or is he here to see me? She lowered her gaze and asked casually as she held the teacup in one hand and gently scraped the tea with the lid of the teacup with the other. Hearing this, Steward Huang's eyes flickered. He smiled and said, I haven't introduced them to you yet. These 2 are the deacons of the Great Yen Black Market. They are here to discuss some matters with me. Coincidentally, they heard that someone brought the black token here. Out of curiosity, they came along. I hope you don't mind. Oh. So you're also from the black market. Only then did she nod her head. She put down her teacup and stood up. Her gaze fell on the 2 people as she said, I have something to discuss with Manager Huang. Should the 2 of you leave for a moment? Actually, I also happen to have something to discuss with young master, and would like to take up some of young master's time, the middle-aged man said, his gaze falling on Fengjiu. He had no intention of avoiding him. Hearing this, Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and looked at the middle-aged man who had looked at her from the moment he came in. She brushed her robe and sat back on the chair again. Leaning against the back of the chair, she asked with some interest, What do you want to talk to me about? Tell me about it. I wonder if this black token belongs to young master or your father. Or your father's? The middle-aged man asked directly. Chapter 509. If it's yours, young master, I would like to discuss with young master and borrow young master's black token. Of course, I won't let young master suffer any losses. So long as young master names a price, I can rent it at a high price. Perhaps because he saw that Fengjiu was young, the middle-aged man actually spoke such words. As soon as he spoke, the person beside him and Manager Huang couldn't help but glance at him. Their lips moved, but they didn't say anything. Instead, their gazes fell on the young man in red. However, Fengjiu smiled when he heard this. He didn't answer the middle-aged man. Instead, he looked at Manager Huang and asked curiously, "Can the black market's black tokens be rented out like this?" Manager Huang smiled awkwardly. He glanced at the middle-aged man and then said to Fengjiu, "Young master, the black market doesn't have such an example." As soon as he finished speaking, he said to the middle-aged man, "You should go to the private room and wait for me." However, the middle-aged man slightly frowned. He glanced at Manager Huang and said, "This matter is not impossible. As long as this young master agrees, it will become a private transaction. Moreover, I don't need a long time. 1 month is enough." Although they were black market's attendants, they generally carried out business outside. Their positions were different from those of the black market's attendants. If they had the convenience to obtain the black market's black tokens, he wouldn't have seized the opportunity before him. Actually, in his opinion, although the young man in red had an outstanding temperament, he was young and inexperienced. If he gave him enough benefits, he wasn't afraid that the young man wouldn't agree to this transaction. When she saw that the middle-aged man still didn't give up and wanted her black token, she curled her lips and looked at Manager Huang, "Where's my black token?" When he heard this, Manager Huang recalled that the black token was still in the hands of the middle-aged attendant. He hurriedly said, "Brother Su, quickly return the black token to this young master. Old Su, return the black token to this young master. We can think of another way," the middle-aged man at the side said. After all, he knew that renting the black token wasn't appropriate. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, the middle-aged man surnamed Su glanced at Fengjiu and paused for a moment. He then took out a black token from his sleeve and handed it to Fengjiu, saying, "This is the young master's black token. Please keep it well." Fengjiu glanced at the middle-aged man who had been staring at her face. She smiled and took the black token. However, when she took it, her eyes couldn't help but move slightly. She looked at the black token in her hand, raised her eyebrows and asked with a faint smile, "This is my black token?" Once those words were spoken, the expressions of the 3 people changed, especially Manager Huang. He quickly took it and looked at it. When he did, he could not help but be slightly stunned. He looked at the middle-aged man with the surname Su who had a tense expression. "Brother Su, this, you." The middle-aged man at the side frowned as well when he saw this. He glanced at the middle-aged man with the surname Su before glancing at the black command token in Manager Huang's hand, and he seemed to be lost in thought. "Young master, what do you mean? This isn't your black token. Could it be that it's fake?" The middle-aged man's face turned gloomy. The pressure of a golden core cultivator emanated from his body and enveloped Fengjiu. When she felt the pressure, Leng Shuang's already icy cold face became even colder. She glanced at her younger brother and saw that he was forcefully enduring the pressure without moving. However, his forehead was covered in cold sweat. When she saw this, she glanced at the middle-aged man. Chapter 5:10. However, contrary to everyone's expectations, Fengjiu did not fly into a rage, nor did she attack. Instead, she revealed a strange smile and took the black token from Manager Huang's hand. She looked at it and said, "Yes, look carefully. It seems to be mine." "That's right, this is a black token. Who would dare to fake it?" She smiled and stood up. Under the slightly surprised gazes of the others, she looked at Steward Huang and said, "Steward Huang, do you have time now? I have something I need your help with." "Young master, that black token." Manager Huang was stunned. He wanted to speak but was interrupted by Fengjiu. "Since you've seen the black token, it's fine." As she spoke, she looked at the 2 people at the side. "I say, shouldn't you 2 leave first? Since that's the case, we'll take our leave first." The middle-aged man with the surname Su said and walked out without waiting for Manager Huang to say anything. When the other middle-aged man saw this, he paused for a moment and also cupped his hands. His gaze paused on Fengjiu before he turned and left. Seeing the two people leave, Manager Huang opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. After a while, he turned his head and looked at Fengjiu. He sighed and didn't know what to say. He could only ask, "Young master, what is it that you need the black market's help with?" A real black token was actually replaced with a fake one after a trip to the black market. This was the first time he encountered such a thing. Moreover, he actually carried a fake black token with him. If he didn't report this matter, he was afraid that it would cause trouble in the future. Also, was this young man really stupid or was he pretending to be stupid? Was he just going to watch his black token being traded away? He clearly saw that it was not the original one, but he still smiled and accepted it. Could it be that he was frightened by his aura? He couldn't help but look at the young man with a smile on his face. He was puzzled. Fengjiu toyed with the black token in her hand. Her slightly curved lips had a strange smile that no one could guess. A calculating light flashed through her half-closed eyes. She was as cunning as a fox. How could she really suffer such a loss? "Steward Huang, I'm here to ask you to investigate a person for me." She smiled and looked at the steward who was worried. "May I know who young master wants to investigate?" With the power of the black market, not to mention investigating a person, it would not be a problem to investigate an entire clan. A woman called Su Shi. "I want to know where her family is, as well as everything related to her and her recent movements." When he heard this, Steward Huang's first thought was that this young man couldn't have stolen his father's black token to chase after the young lady, right? Thinking of the fake black token, he had a headache and said, "Young master, do you have a portrait of the girl you're looking for?" Or what was his last name? No matter how powerful the black market is, it won't be easy to find just a name. A portrait? She had a strange expression on her face. She didn't know how many years her grandfather had kept that painting of a beauty. The woman in the painting was probably about the same age as her grandfather now. It was useless even if she had seen the painting when she was young. Chapter 511. Hearing this, Manager Huang nodded. That's even better. Thus, he got someone to prepare a brush, ink, and paper for Fengjiu to draw the person. After a long while, Fengjiu handed the portrait to him and said, "I'll be staying here for a while." "Yes, I'll be staying at the 5 Blessings Inn. If there's any news, send it there. Hurry up with this matter. I'll be waiting for it." "Alright, I'll get someone to investigate right away." Manager Huang responded and walked out of the hall with the portrait. After instructing his subordinates, he handed the portrait to an old man and walked back into the hall. He looked at Fengjiu, who was sitting there and playing with the fake black token in his hand, and sighed inwardly. Just as he was about to speak, he was so frightened by the scene in front of him that his eyes widened. He saw that the young man had crushed the black token with one hand, and it directly turned into ashes that scattered all over the ground. Seeing this in his actions, Manager Huang immediately broke out in a cold sweat. He kept muttering in his heart, "It's over, it's over." He felt that this young man was not someone to be trifled with. Although that black token was fake, it was not made of ordinary materials. But now, it was directly crushed into powder by this young man. Fengjiu blew away the powder on his hands and took the wet cloth from Leng Hua to wipe his hands. Only then did he look at Manager Huang, whose eyes were wide with shock, and said with a smile, "Manager Huang, there's one more thing you have to report." "WH, what is it?" Manager Huang looked at the young man's fake smile and even stuttered a little when he spoke. Who could tell him what was going on with this young man whose aura had suddenly changed? What was going on with this young man who was exuding a powerful and intimidating aura? Just now, he was actually wondering if this young man had been frightened by old Su's golden core aura. But now, looking at the aura and pressure emanating from his body, his legs were actually trembling. How terrifying. What a strange young man. Where did he come from? Actually, It's not a big deal. It's just that my black token was stolen. You can report it. Get someone to help me look for it. Steward Huang was dumbfounded. This young man turned around and did such a thing. Could it be that he had been waiting here for a long time? Hearing the carelessness in his voice, he couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat off his forehead. Young master, this matter. He wanted to say that all the black tokens in the black market were the same. If you lost it, there was no evidence. Other than reporting the loss, it wouldn't be easy to find the original one. Unexpectedly, before she could say anything, she heard the young man's voice again. By the way, I seem to have forgotten to tell you that apart from me, no one else can use my black token. What? Steward Huang cried out in shock and his face instantly turned pale. Initially, only his legs were trembling, but now, his entire body was trembling. Beads of cold sweat dripped down from his forehead. He looked in shock and horror at the young man who was smiling innocently in front of him. He could only feel his teeth chattering. That black token, if that black token was really as the young man in front of him said, that apart from him, no one else could use it, then that was a level 1 black token. However, he had only seen that it was a black token earlier and didn't notice that there was a level 1 mark on the black token. But now, looking at the young man's expression and hearing his tone, it was clearly a level 1 black token. A level 1 black token, with blood as the pattern. On that token, only the owner of the black token could activate the blood pattern. Chapter 5:12. Fengjiu was suddenly in a good mood when she saw how frightened Steward Huang was. She chuckled and teased, "It's a little expensive, but would you believe me if I said my surname is Ghost? Forget it, I won't talk to you about this anymore. Go and invite your president over. I'll talk to him." She seemed to have only used the 2 words "ghost doctor" when she registered. Actually, when she first received this black token, it was indeed just an ordinary black token, a black token that could allow the black market to treat her as a VIP. However, after she came into contact with President Ku of the Qingting Kingdom's black market, he knew that she had a black token and said that he helped her apply for a first-class black token, saying that she would have more privileges and better treatment. However, she didn't pay much attention to it. After all, it was just a token and she didn't really care about it. She didn't expect to encounter such a problem here. She originally thought that it would be enough to leave the investigation to the black market steward and didn't want to alert the black market's president. However, she didn't expect that someone would have designs on her black token. Who dared to snatch something from her? How interesting. Steward Huang's face turned pale. He was the black market steward and he was usually in charge of the black market's affairs. However, he was the one who was in charge of the black market. The person above him was the president. If he knew about this, he really didn't dare to imagine what the consequences would be. However, the young man in front of him had already revealed his identity as a first-class black token holder. Even if he was the black market steward, he didn't have the right to receive him. Thinking of this, he swallowed his saliva and said in a trembling voice, young master, please have a seat. I'll immediately send someone to invite the president." The black market's president usually didn't come out to manage matters because they spent most of their time cultivating. Unless there was something serious that the steward couldn't handle, they would only come out. However, in this case, only the president could come out. He didn't dare to send someone to invite the president. Instead, he went to invite the president personally. He hurried to the president's independent courtyard where he cultivated. He stood guard outside the courtyard and let the guard pass on an urgent matter. Not long after, a man in a gray robe who looked to be about 50 years old walked out. This person was the president of the Dian's black market, a nascent soul cultivator who exuded the aura of a powerful cultivator. "What's going on?" His face was solemn as he glanced at Manager Huang. His voice was dignified and carried the pressure of an expert. The moment he opened his mouth, it caused one's heart to tremble slightly. Upon seeing him, Manager Huang's legs trembled and he immediately knelt down with a plop. He said in a panic, "President. I am in big trouble. President, please save me." Hearing this, his frown deepened, but he didn't let him get up. Instead, he asked, "Tell me clearly." Therefore, Steward Huang did not dare to hide anything and told him about how the two men came to look for him and how the red-clothed youth had exchanged a black order with him. At this point, he had a long face and his face was filled with panic. I really didn't know that the Black Order was a level 1 Black Order. Things like level 1 Black Order are extremely rare and I never thought that it would appear in the Great Yen Dynasty. Moreover, the person who owned it was a youth. A red-clothed youth? After hearing Steward Huang's description, a hint of surprise appeared in the president's eyes. It was as if he had thought of something. His expression became a little excited as he hurriedly asked, "Where is that young man now?" Chapter 5:13. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew in. Feng Jiu, who was sitting in the main hall drinking tea, looked up and saw a man in grey robes around 50 years old standing in front of her. Without waiting for her to speak, the other party glanced at her and laughed loudly, cupping his hands in greeting. I didn't know that the ghost doctor had come from afar. If there is anything that I have neglected, I hope that the ghost doctor will not blame me. Hearing this, Feng Jiu raised her eyebrows. "You are the president here?" He actually knew her identity with one look. He wasn't simple. My surname is Ku. The ghost doctor can call me Elder Ku." He couldn't hide the joy on his face and sat down on the main seat. "Ku." Feng Jiu's expression changed slightly, asking, "Could it be that you are from the same family as Qingting Kingdom's President Ku?" Hearing this, he nodded and smiled. The ghost doctor is wise. You guessed it right with one sentence. He is my clan brother. I heard him mention the ghost doctor before, that's how I knew. I didn't think that the ghost doctor would suddenly come to the Yen Kingdom. It really is a surprise. Hearing that he was from the same family as Qingting Kingdom's President Ku, Feng Jiu was relieved. No wonder he could recognize her with one look. Since he knew her identity, she didn't beat around the bush. She glanced at Manager Huang who was standing by the door and didn't dare to come in and spoke directly. "Since that's the case, President Ku, I hope that you can give me an explanation for today's matter." "Ghost Doctor, don't worry. I already know about this matter and will deal with it strictly. The Ghost Doctor's level 1 Black Order can't be used by that Su fellow. As long as I give the order, in less than a day, he will definitely return the Black Order." He gave his guarantee and at the same time, he shouted at Manager Huang who was standing by the door, "Get in here." Manager Huang's face was pale. He only heard the president call that young man the ghost doctor. He only knew that the president was very surprised when he saw this young man and his attitude changed 136 degrees. The more it was like this, the more his heart trembled. He entered the main hall and knelt down with a thud. Forgive me. Feng Jiu didn't speak and only looked at President Ku. Meaning that he would do as he saw fit. Deceiving your superiors and your subordinates, and you don't even have the slightest bit of discipline. You've reached the end of your career as a manager. From today onwards, you will be sent to the dark prison to reflect on your misdeeds for 10 years. Chairman Ku shouted. With a wave of his hand, his robes fluttered and a gust of wind blew him away. Men. 2 black figures appeared in the hall in a flash. They bowed respectfully and lowered their heads to await the order. Pass down the order. Check every single one of the joints. If you see a cultivator surnamed Su with a grade 1 black token, capture him and bring him back. Once the order was given, the two of them respectfully responded and instantly disappeared. Only then did Chairman Ko look at the red-clothed Feng Jiu, saying, "I heard that the ghost doctor is currently staying at the 5 Blessings Inn." How could staying in an inn be more comfortable than staying in the black market? Why don't the ghost doctor move into the black market? There are plenty of empty courtyards in the black market. It's quiet and comfortable to stay here. It'll also allow this Ko to play the role of a host and properly entertain the ghost doctor. No need, it's more convenient to stay in an inn. She waved her hand and stood up, saying, I've already wasted quite a bit of time here. It's already quite late, so I'll take my leave first. Hearing that, Chairman Ko hurriedly stood up to send her off, saying, I'll send the ghost doctor off. That's right, ghost doctor, don't worry. I'll get them to speed up the investigation. We must satisfy the ghost doctor in the shortest time possible. Chapter 5:14. He knew her identity from Qin Ting country's President Ko and was familiar with her. Naturally, he knew that she could concoct pills and make medicine. Looking at his expression, it was most likely that he was either asking for pills or medicine. She'd better pretend she didn't see it. Seeing Feng Jiu walk out and ignore his hesitant expression, President Ko couldn't help but smile bitterly. This ghost doctor's personality was just as his clan brother said, strange, but also wise and farsighted. He clearly knew what he was thinking, but didn't say anything or expose him. He just pretended he didn't see it and walked away. Only he could do such a thing. Sighing softly in his heart, he followed behind to send them out. He originally wanted to speak, but felt that it wasn't good to ask for pills the first time they met. Now that he knew where he lived, he resisted the urge and changed his visit to the 5 blessings early in the morning. When the people of the black market saw that it was actually the president who personally sent the red-clothed youth out, they couldn't help but look at them, secretly guessing the red-clothed youth's identity. At this time, Feng 9, who had arrived at the entrance of the black market, stopped and said to President Ko, you can call me young Master Feng. As for my identity and my whereabouts, I don't want others to know. Hearing this, President Ko hurriedly replied, yes, 9th young master, don't worry. I know what to do. Feng Jiu nodded. Seeing that the sky outside had darkened, he thought of the man she had forgotten in the inn and couldn't help but feel guilty. He hurriedly brought Ling Shuang and Ling Hua back. President Ko watched his figure disappear on the street before turning back, secretly thinking, how can I ask for the ghost doctor's pills? He had been stuck in the second level of nascent soul for a long time and only lacked a pill that could help him break through. He had heard that the ghost doctor was good at this type of pill. But, it wouldn't be easy to ask for pills. His personality was strange. Take today's matter as an example. If he had revealed his identity early on, none of this would have happened. However, he just watched and allowed the situation to develop. As a result, the cultivator with the surname Su who exchanged his black token would have to suffer. He didn't need to personally teach the ghost doctor a lesson, their black market would have to give him an explanation. This kind of method, this kind of scheming, made him understand for the first time, what his clan brother meant when he said that the ghost doctor's personality was strange. Meanwhile, in the inn, the Yama Lord's chilling aura was enough to turn the temperature of the room from summer to winter. Looking at his master who was sitting at the table and drinking who knows how much tea, Grey Wolf did not dare to open his mouth, nor did he dare to relax. He could only stand tensely at an inconspicuous side and wait. Why are you waiting here? There was no other reason. Because his master would ask him to go out every once in a while to see if the ghost doctor had returned. Ever since the ghost doctor went out shopping, he didn't know how many times he had walked out of the room to check next door. Just as he was thinking, he suddenly saw his master who had drunk another cup of tea put down the teacup heavily and stood up. He was so shocked that his heart trembled and he hurriedly asked, Master, what's wrong? Ling Mohan glanced back at him and walked out of the room without a word. He went to the first floor and sat down at the table closest to the door. Chapter 5:15. It's getting late, I think she should be back soon. As Ing Yi spoke, he glanced at his master downstairs and walked down as well. Hearing this, Hui Lang glanced at the sky outside and muttered, I'm just afraid that she's having too much fun outside and has forgotten that master is still waiting for her at the inn. He thought to himself, AI. With these two like this, why don't they just stay in the same room? That way, if the ghost doctor goes out, master will be the first to know. As he walked down, he kept looking outside. When he reached the first floor, he didn't stay by his master's side. Instead, he waited outside to see if the ghost doctor would appear on the main street. Waiting for someone was the most stressful thing. It wasn't a long time, but it felt like time was passing very slowly. A long time had passed, but the person they were waiting for still hadn't returned. Looking at his master who was sitting there drinking wine, Grey Wolf beckoned the waiter over and asked him to serve a few dishes for his master. After waiting for about half the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, when he saw a red figure appear in his line of sight, Hui Lang cheered and immediately turned to shout to his master inside, Master, the 9th young master is back. His joyful expression and tone, as well as his words, caused the guests who were drinking and chatting on the first floor of the inn to look back in surprise and curiosity. Because he looked like he was shouting, Master, the madam is back. But the person he was shouting was the 9th young master, a man. Master, Hui Lang seems to be waiting for us. Leng Hua saw Hui Lang at the entrance of the inn from afar and was a little surprised that he was waiting there. But thinking about it, perhaps it wasn't him who was waiting for them, but rather the Yama Lord who was waiting for his master. Feng Jiu weighed the things in his hands and couldn't help but laugh, I'm guessing that arrogant fellow is throwing a tantrum again. Hearing this, Leng Hua and Leng Hua looked at each other and smiled. Yes, the Yama Lord was such a cold and domineering person, but when he met their master, it was as if he changed into a different person. What narrow-mindedness, what arrogance, all of these could be seen in him. Hui Lang was right, only when he was with his master would be more like a human. When they arrived at the entrance of the inn, they saw the figure sitting on the first floor even before they entered. Seeing this, Feng Jiu's eyes slightly moved. Hui Lang, who was beside him, and whispered, 9th young master, you're back. My master has been waiting for you. Feng Nine smiled and walked towards Ling Mohan after glancing at Grey Wolf. She called out to him with a smile, Uncle, look what I brought back for you. She weighed the things in her hands, and her beautiful eyes narrowed into crescents as she looked at the man who was drinking alone. As soon as he heard that she had brought something for him, Ling Mohan's deep eyes flashed with a faint light. He almost couldn't restrain himself from turning back to look at that person and the thing she had brought back for him. However, when he thought that she had gone out without calling him, his heart was filled with anger. Therefore, he ignored her and continued to drink. Uncle, you're not angry, are you? She bent down beside him and tilted her head slightly to look at him with a smile. Seeing that his handsome face was still covered by his beard, she explained, I went out to do something. See, I came back with something for you. Chapter 5:16. Feng Jiu sat down beside him and looked at him with one hand supporting her chin. She smiled and said, I heard from Hui Lang that you like to eat a few pieces of walnut pastry. When I came back, I saw a pastry shop and bought some for you. Try them and see how they taste. Hearing her words, he finally could not help but look at her. His heart failed to live up to his expectations, and his faintly beating joy caused the icy aura on his body to disappear in an instant. Grey Wolf and Shadow who were watching from the side were speechless. They knew that the ghost doctor specialized in curing the cold air around their master. As long as she was around, even winter could turn into spring. Looking at this transformation, they were simply too surprised. But thinking about it, it was normal. Who asked their master to be so infatuated with the ghost doctor? Sigh. He had unknowingly fallen into the ghost doctor's love net and was willingly entangled. Humph. Don't think that you can get rid of me with a few pieces of walnut pastry. If you don't explain clearly, see how I'll deal with you. She obviously couldn't hide her joy, but her face was still proud. As she spoke, she opened the packet of walnut pastry and picked up a piece to eat. The guests on the first floor listened to their conversation and looked at their expressions. Their expressions couldn't help but become strange. One by one, they looked at the two of them, but no one knew what they were thinking. I haven't eaten dinner yet. Let's talk while we eat. She said with a smile and picked up her chopsticks to eat. Seeing this, Ling Mohan glanced at Hui Lang and said, "Give her a bowl of rice and ask the waiter to add a few more dishes." He paused and glanced at her small body and said, "Add meat dishes and a stew." "Yes." Hui Lang grinned and hurriedly asked the waiter to quickly bring a few more dishes. He then ran to the kitchen and brought out a small bowl of white rice for them. Feng Jiu said as she ate, "I just went to the black market and asked them to help me find out where to find my grandfather. I was delayed by some matters, otherwise I would have come back long ago." Hearing this, Ling Mohan raised his wine glass and took a sip. He didn't say anything else. Initially, he had instructed Hui Lang to send someone to investigate, but before he could tell her, she had run off on her own. Looking at her eating with great appetite, he put down the wine glass and picked up the chopsticks to give her a piece of meat. "Eat more meat, you are too thin." Feng Jiu ignored him and buried her head in her food. She felt that it would be better to quickly finish eating and return to her room to rest. She couldn't stand his burning gaze. After the meal, she hurriedly said, "It's been a tiring day. Uncle, you should rest early too. I'll go back to my room first. See you tomorrow." As soon as she finished speaking, she didn't wait for him to say anything and went straight to her room on the second floor. Seeing the woman's fleeing figure, Ling Mohan snorted coldly, but didn't say anything. Instead, he picked up the bag of walnut cakes she brought back and went to the second floor. Seeing that they had all gone up, the guests downstairs began to discuss. The way that man looked at the young man was really strange. Yes, that's the way he looks at women. But that young man is really good looking. But the relationship between the two of them is not ordinary. Do you think, could they be gay? Ing, who was guarding the door of the room on the second floor, heard the conversation downstairs and the corner of his mouth twitched. He was speechless. The next morning, when President Ku personally came to the inn with a generous gift, he was told that the person he was looking for had left early in the morning. Chapter 5:17. There doesn't seem to be many people here. She looked at the door of the guild that was completely empty. From the outside, it was very quiet inside, and there were only a few people walking around. Ling Mohan glared at her. "Do you think pharmacists are cabbages? That they can be found anywhere?" Hearing this, she smiled embarrassedly and asked, "I'll go in. You guys find a place to wait for me. There was a tea house over there when I came over just now. I'll go find you after I'm done with the assessment." "Okay." Knowing that the assessment would take a few hours, Ling Mohan agreed and gave some instructions. Then, he led Hui Lang and Ing Yi to the tea house. "You two follow them. You don't have to wait here. It'll take a few hours." She gestured for Ling Shuang and Ling Hua to follow them to the tea house. "Yes." The two of them responded. Because the tea house was not far from here, they could see the main door of the Pharmacists' Guild from the second floor. Therefore, they also went to the tea house. At this time, Feng Jiu walked into the Pharmacists' Guild. After entering, she found a pharmacist who was in charge of reception and told him the purpose of her visit. "You're here for the badge assessment." The pharmacist looked Feng Jiu up and down, then pointed to a counter on the other side. "Go over there and pay the assessment fee first, then come back to get a number." Because the pharmacist badge assessment required the use of spiritual herbs, every pharmacist who took the assessment had to pay a corresponding fee for each level of pharmacist. Knowing this, Fengjiu quickly paid the fee and took the voucher to the pharmacist to get a number. Go inside and wait. You came early, so you got the first number. The pharmacist said indifferently and handed her a wooden card. People came to take the assessment every day, but very few people could pass. This young man was only 15 or 16 years old. He didn't even see how much she had paid and which level of pharmacist badge she wanted to take the assessment. He just gave her a number and sent her away. In his opinion, this young man would not be able to pass the exam, so he did not give him a good attitude. Fengjiu didn't think much of it. She took the number plate and walked inside. When she arrived, she saw that it was a large stone room. There was a pharmacist standing outside. When he saw her come in, he looked her up and down. You're here for the assessment. Wait a moment, the person in charge of the assessment hasn't arrived yet. Hearing this, she nodded. She had never been here before. Taking advantage of the fact that it was still early, she looked around and smelled the faint medicinal fragrance in the air. Her gaze fell on the closed stone door in front of her. She thought to herself, is the assessment inside? Wasn't the ceiling done too well? Is there any light inside? After the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, more than 10 people came in one after another. They were all holding wooden tokens and waiting to be tested. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the pharmacist in charge of the test finally entered the stone room. Bring in the number 1 pill. The apothecary guarding the stone door shouted. Everyone looked over and saw a handsome young man in a dazzling red robe handing over his wooden token with a smile. I'm number 1. At this moment, Fengjiu was in a good mood. Waking up early in the morning was the right choice. At least she was the first person to take the assessment. Go in. The apothecary took her wooden token and opened the stone door to let her in. As soon as she stepped inside, Fengjiu's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. From the outside, it looked like a sealed stone room. However, when she entered, she realized that other than the 4 walls surrounding the room, there was only a blue sky and white clouds above. Chapter 5:18. The 3 examiners inside glanced at the newcomer and saw that it was a young red-clothed youth. He looked around curiously as soon as he entered the apothecary guild. It was obvious that this was his first time in the apothecary guild. Seeing this, one of the examiners coughed lightly and said, "Come and register." "What's your name? How old are you?" The examiners only needed to register their name and age. The name was a code, but the age was not. They needed to know the age of each examiner, as well as the rank of the apothecary they were being tested for, so that the apothecaries could easily calculate. At this moment, Fengjiu's gaze also fell on the 3 examiners. Seeing that they were 2 middle-aged men and an old man, he walked forward and bowed, a pure and harmless smile on his handsome face. Greetings, examiners. My name is Fengjiu, and I'm 16 years old this year. The 3 examiners saw that the youth in front of them had a handsome appearance, a clear and energetic voice, and a face that was full of ignorance. However, he was well-mannered and had a sense of propriety. They all nodded inwardly, thinking that this child should be a descendant of a noble family. After the middle-aged man wrote down the name and age, he pointed to a stone door behind him and said, "That's the elixir room. There are all kinds of elixirs. You need to identify the elixirs and choose the herbs yourself. Once you've chosen the herbs you need, go to the refining table over there to refine your medicine." Fengjiu looked in the direction he pointed and nodded, "Okay." Only then did he walk towards the stone door. When he pushed open the stone door, he saw that it was another world inside. Although it was called the elixir room, he still had to walk nearly 10 meters to reach the elixir room. Rather than calling it a room, it was more appropriate to call it a 3-story building. There was a small square table in front of the building, and an old man was sitting there, dozing off with his hands supporting his chin. Perhaps it was because he heard footsteps that he opened his eyes. Show me the proof of payment. The old man glanced at Fengjiu and tapped his finger on the table. Hearing this, Fengjiu took out the payment receipt from earlier and handed it over. He thought to himself that there were a lot of troublesome things to deal with, and it took a lot of effort to deal with them. The old man looked at the payment date. When he saw the amount, his eyes widened. He rubbed his eyes, thinking that he had seen wrongly. However, when he looked again, it was still the same number. He could not help but raise his head in astonishment and look at the red-clothed young man in front of him. Go in. He handed the voucher back to Fengjiu, and stared at her with a strange gaze until she went inside. Then, he whispered, the fee is actually the highest level. What rank of badge did this youngster take the exam? After entering the building, Fengjiu felt that there was an expert's divine sense shrouding the three-story building. It was as if there was a pair of eyes watching everything inside. She did not care. She took out a basket and picked some elixirs that she needed. In less than half an incense stick's time, she came out with 2 baskets of elixirs. Seeing the youngster leave with 2 baskets of elixirs, the old man sitting at the table stared blankly. So many elixirs, and they were not ordinary elixirs. Even if he paid the fee again, he would not be able to make up for it. The guild's fees were divided into 3 levels. Generally, those who came to take the exam for the badge would choose the best ones. Even the medicine sect would not have more than 50 elixirs. However, that youngster just went in and came out with 2 baskets in less than half an incense stick's time. Chapter 519. The 3 people in the examination room sat and chatted. Normally, there would only be about 10 to 20 people taking the examination every day. Although some people would need 2 to 3 hours to complete the examination, there would also be some people who would run into problems in the middle of the concoction process and were unable to continue. Therefore, there were people who failed the examination in less than half an incense stick's time. Therefore, the examination was a very leisurely affair for them. Because they were chatting, there were smiles on their faces. When they heard the sound coming from the stone door, they instinctively glanced over. However, when they saw the red-clothed youth carrying 2 baskets full of spiritual herbs in his hands, the smiles on their faces froze. They all widened their eyes and stood up with a whoosh. Just seeing the expensive spiritual herbs in the baskets made them dumbfounded. Those were spiritual herbs from the 3rd floor. Why did he bring them here? There were so many spiritual herbs, and they were all aged. Any one of them was not something that the fee he paid could compare to. Therefore, someone couldn't help but ask. Fengjiu, what are you taking so many spiritual herbs for? Hearing this, Fengjiu looked at the examiner who asked the question in astonishment. He naturally replied, to refine medicine. If he wasn't going to refine medicine, what was he taking so many for? Wasn't this a pointless question? However, this pharmacist guild was really not bad. Compared to the spiritual herbs in the baskets, the fee he paid was not even worth mentioning. Hearing the youth's matter-of-fact words and seeing the youth's expression that clearly said he was asking a pointless question, a few veins appeared on his forehead. The corner of his mouth twitched and he said again, so many spiritual herbs, can you refine them all? You have to know that although you paid the fee, you can't waste the spiritual herbs. You can only take the spiritual herbs that you need for the medicine you want to refine. If you waste the spiritual herbs that you clearly don't need, you will have to buy them at 10 times the price. She frowned, but I need them all. As she spoke, she had already carried the 2 baskets of spiritual herbs to the refining table. Seeing this, the other 2 examiners finally couldn't bear it and shouted, you need them? How are you going to use them? Do you know the names and medicinal properties of those spiritual herbs? 2 baskets of spirit herbs, and all of them are aged. This is no joke. Perhaps thinking of something, Fengjiu, who was originally frowning, looked up at them with a strange expression and asked, 3 examiners, do you know what badge I'm here for? Isn't it just a pharmacist's badge? One of them said. They hadn't asked him anything since he came in, but looking at this young man's age, he should be taking the examination for the pharmacist badge. The 2 examiners at the side glanced at the youth, then glanced at the 2 baskets full of aged spirit herbs. They shook their heads and picked up the teacups on the table, intending to drink some water to calm down. This was the first time this young man had come to take the test. He didn't even understand the rules here, so don't expect him to pass the test. One had to know that even for a pharmacist, it wasn't that easy to get a badge. Hearing this, Fengjiu grinned, revealing a dazzling smile, and said in a light tone, "No. I'm here to take the Medicine Saint's badge." Pooh. Cough cough, you're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.